Summon Sign is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 64 of Summon Sign, Last Stand Media's weekly in-depth game discussion podcast. I'm your host as always, Brad Ellison. Joining me, I have two lovely humans. And first of all, happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you out there. By the time you hear this, it's already over, but for us, it is St. Patrick's Day, so delayed St. Patrick's. Mr. Hoeg, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm always interested in that kind of timing delay, right? As we have these days, we say, have a great weekend, and it goes up after the weekend, and it always seems interesting that there's that bit of delay, but it is St. Patrick's Day as it stands right now as I say these words.
Yes. You got to make that crystal clear to some people because they'll hear it and be like, oh, it's not St. Patrick's Day. What are you talking about? Believe it, Hoeg. Well, of course, you're on the internet. Some people argue about everything. But
I'm a lawyer too.
Yes.
I get it both directions. Yeah.
Yes, you were used to it. And of course, also joining me, the lovely Micah Moriarty, my punching up co-host. Micah, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, Brad. Yesterday, I had wanted to make a nice chuck roast on the smoker, but the weather didn't cooperate. Made it in the crock pot instead. Came out great. The torture, though, is that the house still smells like pot roast. So I wake up this morning and it's just permeating everything. And it's I was starving. I descended the stairs and was just immediately hungry because the whole house still smells really good.
It's probably driving your dogs crazy.
Oh my God. Yeah. As soon as I was I'm shredding it yesterday and they're tippy tapping, but it's no, you can't have any. It's, full of onions and whatnot. I'm you can't. Sorry. Also, don't need to deal with them having rich foods. That's for sure. But yeah, they go nuts when they smell it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't give dogs that kind of stuff all the time.
No, their human treat, they love rice. So luckily, rice is super easy on their tummies, and I just give them a little bit. So they got a treat yesterday. They did get some rice, but yeah, they want the bacon and all the rich fatty foods, but it's you can't have it because it's going to cause problems.
Yeah, gotta be careful with that kind of stuff. But I don't know about you guys, but growing up, there's always one family member, particularly it was my dad, that would give the dog treats constantly. Just all the time, anything my dad's doing, he would just throw the dog just a little bit of something like that. And I always thought that was really funny, but I'm our dog was very fat, so that probably was the cause of it. But I guess my dad couldn't help it. It was too funny.
Well, the thing is, so Treble loves bananas, and we found bananas are safe for dogs, but so she was always bothering me. Every time I ate a banana, she'd be pestering me. And I was you're not going to like it. So here, try a little piece. Of course, she loved it. Mm-hmm. So now every time I peel a banana, she comes running.
Yeah,
and I'll drop her a little piece. But it's banana. She loves apples. And each time I'm you're not going to like this because Rush doesn't like it. And she likes everything. So she does get little tidbits of stuff like that. She loves pretzels as well, as do I. But when it comes to anything greasy or whatever, that's we put our foot down. You just can't have any.
Yeah. You gotta be careful with that kind of stuff. You don't want the dog getting sick because then you'll have to clean it up.
Yeah, that's how it goes. They don't know how to use a mop.
Yeah, unfortunately. Today I'm getting a little crazy. This is the first cup of coffee I've had, I think, in over a year, maybe.
Wow.
So I don't know why. I've just been tired today, and I was I think it's time to have some coffee. So hopefully, I know Dustin's a huge enthusiast, so I don't want to get back on the train because coffee is addictive, but it is good. Hoeg, are you a coffee drinker?
I am not. I'm a tea drinker.
Oh, okay. So you get your caffeine through there?
I do, yes. My wife picked up the habit of making us tea when she got really into Downton Abbey, and we've never dropped it.
That's really funny. Does she make afternoon tea?
Yes, I have tea on all my shows, basically.
Oh, wow.
But we have caffeinated, decaffeinated. They all have promotional photos from Downton Abbey on them. So they'll be called Mrs. Patmore's pudding tea, that kind of thing. But I picked it up when she did, and I have grown to like it quite a lot.
So do you go hard with like the sugar cubes and stuff like that, or you just kind of have it straight?
I just have it straight, but they are flavored teas.
Okay.
Right. So I do have a breakfast tea or a black tea that is pretty standard for how you think about tea. But oftentimes I will be drinking one of those breakfast teas, or my favorite is vanilla almond.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm curious about like our British listeners. Is tea time like still a pretty common thing there? Like they have afternoon tea and stuff like that, I wonder. I'm not sure. Let me know. I don't know. Let me know. I'm curious about that stuff. I know you guys love your tea though. All right, guys. Today's episode 64. So I thought we would honor the wonderful Nintendo 64. First of all, Hoeg, I'm curious. Any history with 64?
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a Nintendo 64, and I remember going and seeing a Nintendo 64 at a friend's house and seeing Mario 64 and being blown away as compared to the PlayStation that I had.
Yeah. I was in this, dude. Hoeg, when I saw Mario 64, I was blown away. I'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah. I don't know that we can get that same experience now today for folks, because it really was just an absolute shift in how you think about video games, even though PlayStation was 3D at the time.
Yeah, it's just like a whole nother level. Nothing like it at the time. That was the big leap for me, I guess, in graphics, or people talk about. Seeing that for the first time was the most insane. Now, Micah, I know you're younger than us, so you didn't grow up probably with the N64, but you're gonna do your best today. I told you what we're gonna do. We are gonna rank our personal top 5 favorite N64 games.
I'm just glad you didn't ask for 64.
No, God, no. That's like the entire library, Hoeg. We don't need to do that. That's the entire console library. But Mike, I'm curious to see what you're going to pick. I told her it's totally fine if she doesn't have 5, because I know you don't have a lot of experience with it.
Yeah.
You're a relatively newer Nintendo fan, which I really like, though. That's what I love about you on Punching Up, is you experiencing all this stuff for the first time. It's really cool. But you're getting there. You're starting to play Zelda games now. I'm proud of you. You're doing good, Micah.
Thank you.
You still got some work to do, like listening to the music and games, but we're getting there.
Micah is rolling through games faster than I am.
I know, she is rolling through them. Speaking of that, I did finish Kingdom Come. Me and Mike have now finished it, Kingdom Come 2. It was great. So we'll probably do a spoiler thing on it when Locke finishes it. He's going to try to finish it soon. We can't do it without Locke. That wouldn't be right.
That is totally fair.
No, if we did that episode without Locke, we would feel his wrath. Like he would immediately come to America and go Henry on us, for sure.
Yeah. So we'll do that in the future sometime when Locke finishes it, but we don't want to rush
I love that game, but I'm not finishing it this year.
It's a big game. Yeah, it's a big game, but it's great. I really enjoyed it. All right. So we'll do our top 5 N64 games. Rick, let's start with you. We'll start with number 5. What's your 5th favorite N64 game of all time?
It's funny. I don't think I ordered this list, but I would say my 5th on the ones that I have selected for this purpose is probably Perfect Dark.
Ooh, that's a great one, Hoeg. Okay.
I didn't go with GoldenEye. I did enjoy GoldenEye, but as my personal experience with these two games, I enjoyed Perfect Dark a bit more. And the story here is actually that this was one of the first kind of alternate reality games that I played on the internet, the nascent internet back in the 90s. And it was a marketing campaign for Perfect Dark that essentially pretended to be the evil corporation in that game, which I know is a play on Cyberdyne, but it's escaping me right this second. And I really enjoyed that, really got into the world of the game before I played it. And then I thought it was a good game on top of that. So Perfect Dark is my number 5.
Yeah, great game. It needed the expansion pack, didn't it? I'm trying to remember. I think it did, right? It was a late N64 game.
That is a really good question. I don't remember. I don't know.
That's okay. Well, it doesn't matter. I remember the co-op and it was really cool. One of them was the alien, right?
Yeah, the little alien guy running around.
Yeah. Great game. Super fun. Mike, I'm curious. Do you have a number 5 or no? You want to save it?
I have only ever played 3 games on N64.
Okay, that's really funny. I love
two
that.
Two of them are trash, but they're going to be on the list.
Yeah. Okay, so when we get to 3, we'll come back to Micah. All right, so number 5 for me, this is tough because I don't really know what to put here because I'm thinking of a couple things. The top 4 are locked in, but 5, it's a tie, I think, between 2 games. I'm gonna put Mario Kart 64 here. It's not the best Mario Kart, but man, that was the one we probably played the most growing up. I would say I was like the perfect age with all my friends playing that game. We played so many hours. The battle mode, still the best battle mode in Mario Kart. They have not touched that. Wonderful game. Remember doing the Rainbow Road skip and missing it? A big risk. I loved it. Super fun game. Hyped to see what they do with the Switch 2 Mario Kart.
Yeah, we should get that announcement really soon.
Yeah, pretty soon. I think a little over 2 weeks from today. So we're getting there.
So is that a guarantee? We're going to see that game that was teased in that trailer?
I guess that's the only thing. Yeah, I guess that was the only thing they teased. So I assume they'll show it, but it's Nintendo. You never know.
It's hard to assume anything on Nintendo.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Hoeg, number 4 for you.
Okay, number 4, I think I'm going to pick Blast Corps.
Oh, Blast Corps, yeah.
Which is a rare game in which you play construction vehicles of various types and knock down buildings. And that's obviously a very perfunctory explanation of this game. But I had such a blast with this game when I was younger. And it was so amazing to me to see these buildings come down, to cut a swath through a city with your bulldozer. And I remember that still today. I don't know that it holds up so well. I played it recently on the Rare Replay that's on the Xbox. But this was one of my favorite N64 experiences.
Yeah, I definitely remember playing that game. I don't remember if I don't know if I really liked it that much, Hoeg. I thought it was I remember the mech suit in it, which was cool. So that was plus points for me, but really interesting
I loved all the vehicles. I loved all the destruction.
Yeah. Now, you like escorted some stuff through like zones, right? And destroyed so it can get through.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Maybe
it was like kind of a Pilot Wings approach to a game design where you'd have these missions that you had to undertake and get high scores on in order to gain access to the other vehicles and the other levels.
Wow. Dude, shout out Pilot Wings on N64. It's not on my list, but I had a lot of fun playing that game.
Yep. It's not on mine either. Almost was, but it is not.
Great music. All right, number 4 for me is GoldenEye. Adore GoldenEye. What people are always talking about, like nowadays, it's funny. I see people talking about Halo, invented console FPSs, like multiplayer and stuff like that. It's like, I was there on GoldenEye, baby. That's where everyone was at before Halo. Of course, Halo had the dual analog stick that helped a lot and make it actually more fun, like competitive and stuff like that. But man, GoldenEye, wonderful game. It's very goofy nowadays and pretty poor, especially in frame rate, but it was very charming at the time. The multiplayer was so much fun. It was a phenomenon at the time. I'm sure you remember, Hoeg. It was,
yeah, absolutely.
Humongous.
I played a lot of GoldenEye in my dorm room back in the day. So I remember that, absolutely. Like Perfect Dark, I don't know that it holds up to modern game design, but like you just mentioned with Halo, I don't think people really understand that before GoldenEye, before Halo, before the sequence of first-person shooters, there was a whole conversation about whether the PC experience of an FPS could actually be translated successfully to the console environment. Like, people didn't know whether that was going to work out. Obviously, there was a lot of intentionality to try to figure it out, but GoldenEye really broke that dam open, no pun intended. And then Halo cemented it forever. And obviously, it's one of the more popular genres in video gaming now.
Yeah. Okay, Micah, let's start with you now, because you're in the ring with us. Number 3, Micah, is one of her 3 N64 games she's played of all time, but her least favorite one.
Yeah, I really did not like it. It's the Mega Man 64 game.
Oh, you didn't like Mega Man 64? Okay.
No.
Okay.
But I'll say it was the first Mega Man game I ever played. Maybe not a great choice. But it was my ex, decided to get out the N64 from when he was a kid. And he only had, literally, he had maybe 4 games for it still. Because at one point he had traded a bunch of them in when he was buying 360 games instead. And one of them was the Mega Man game. And he was like, oh, I used to love this. And then, we're playing it. It's like, he's like, this sucks. And so, yeah, I experienced it. I don't remember it fondly. I'm going to say that, but I'm glad I can say I gave it a try.
You sure gave it a try. Shout out Mega Man 64/Legends. I love that game. Good shit. All right.
Legends is certainly its own ball of wax. It is.
It is.
It is a clunky fit into Mega Man fandom. but it is its own game.
Oh, it's clunky, all right. It sure is. All right, Hoeg, number 3 from you.
Yeah, my number 3 is pretty easy for me. It is Wave Race 64.
Oh, great pick.
I love the waves in this game, which is good because wave is in the name. But when this game came out, it had the best sea effects that I'd ever thought of, ever seen. And I still, when I'm playing any of these games that race and you have any kind of jump, think of Wave Race 64 when you're reorienting the body of your vehicle for the landing to speed ahead on after you've gotten back into the water or on the ground or whatever you're racing on. This was one of my favorite experiences on the N64. Easy number 3 for me.
Yeah, so much fun. Hoeg, I love this game. Like you're saying, the water effects at the time, mind-blowing. Incredible seeing just the waves go up and down, how clear the water was. I spent a lot of time at the stunt park in that game, I remember, with the dolphin. Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
The sunset, still I remember. Game. It all looks like, right now, it looks like kind of an orange jello, but at the time, it was amazing.
Yeah. Shout out. All right, number 3 for me is Majora's Mask, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. A wonderful, probably the best use of reused assets in gaming that I could recall probably for a while. Incredible.
Outside of maybe RGG, yeah.
Yeah. They did it before RGG and like really set the standard, I guess. But a wonderfully bizarre Zelda game that kind of went outside the box in a lot of ways from what we knew from Zelda at the time and had a much different tone than we were used to in a lot of ways. Much more weird, I would say. The mask mechanics are super interesting. I really like switching between the different masks, getting to play as a Deku Scrub, the Goron, the Zora, all really cool.
I really love the timer element of this.
Yeah, the timer element is really interesting. I really like that too as well. You have 3 days essentially, but you can reset time and like depending on the day, different events happen and different NPCs are doing different stuff. It was really cool, really groundbreaking at the time for me, especially. I didn't have a PC, so I missed out on a lot of those really crazy RPGs at the time. But for me at that time, just wonderful. I still think it holds up in a lot of good ways. Not my favorite dungeons. I think they're kind of whatever for the most part compared to other Zelda games, but
I honestly can't remember them, so I'm gonna back you up there.
Exactly. But still a great game. Really cool side quests. Some really good character moments in there. Love it. Yeah. I can't wait for Micah to play it.
I remember liking it. Tonally, it is not a match for me. It was a little too dark and weird for me, either at that point in my life or now. I don't know. I haven't played it in a while. But yeah, it's definitely one of the best kind of pseudo-sequel games that we've seen developed.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 2, Micah.
Another awful game. It's the South Park game, but I love South Park so much that this one was fun. Again, going through my ex's old games, that was like one of the 5 he still had. And we did have a fun afternoon playing that. I was like, this is awful. But it was actually quite fun. If you love South Park, and I truly do, we did enjoy that experience. Now, I would have been pissed as a youngster if I had bought that game. Like, if I got that like for Christmas, you would have been irate. But playing it as a college kid and just for the fun of it, like, it's horrible. But it's enjoyable.
That was the licensed game experience for like the longest time in video game fandom. Was that the licensed game was not going to make you happy as a fan of the licensed property.
Yeah. Right, because like as a kid, for example, I loved like the Kim Possible Game Boy Advance game that they did. Excellent. The Finding Nemo game adaptation, actually like super good. And then I just remember there being so many awful ones. Like for my friends who could afford more games, and they would just be like, oh, this one's bad, and like it was the same on like, DS and 3DS. Like the amount of licensed games is absurd. And it's just so much shit. So much shit.
Yeah, that market has really dissolved some, but that used to be one of the main kind of sources of volume in the video game industry, was translating Nickelodeon shows, translating Disney properties, whatever it might be, into Game Boy games, into less successful Nintendo 64 or other platform games. And yeah, we really do live in an era where those licensed games in general are worth your time. They might not be the best. They might not be the top of the platform for games, but they are better than they were certainly in the 90s and earlier.
Mm-hmm. I remember renting that game, Micah, when it came out, and thinking it was cool because you got to actually go through South Park and kind of see the layout of it. I remember that was really fun. And I remember that you could throw snowballs in the game, but you could your character could piss on the snowball for more damage or something like that. That was really funny. There's some weird stuff in there. I remember the draw distance was terrible as well. The good old N64 draw distance. Yeah, super fun. But yeah, it's really a good game.
To look back on that, because getting games like South Park, Stick of Truth and Fractured But Whole, those two games that I adore, it's just seeing the progression of, wow, yeah, one of those is just licensed, slop. And then the other two are actually extremely good games. I heard horrible things about Snow Day, though, the newest one, so I skipped that. But those first two RPGs that they did were so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Number 2, Hoeg, from you.
Yes, like Perfect Dark, I'm going to zig a little bit. We just talked about Mario 64, obviously an absolutely Pantheon-level game, really changed a lot of things for how 3D platformers were created. But one of the things it led to is my number 2 game on the N64, and that's Banjo-Kazooie.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm a big Rare fan during the N64 years, but Banjo-Kazooie I liked more than Super Mario 64. I still love it to this day. That is one that holds up. I will vouch for that until I die.
Yeah, I love Banjo-Kazooie 1 and 2. Only those two, though. Nuts and Bolts, not so much. Trash.
I think Nuts and Bolts is a good game. I think it's got a lot of good ideas. It's just not a Banjo-Kazooie game.
Stop. Nope. We won't do it. I won't allow it. I won't allow it, Hoeg. I'm going to do
comments, you can make fun of me if you like on that, but I really do like the concept of being given a problem and then having to solve it by building your own vehicle. That reminds me of things like Science Olympiad.
Yeah, I could kind of see that, except it's always boring objectives. Race this Jinjo. Take this giant watermelon over here. It's like, all right. All right, Rare. Thanks for killing Banjo. But yeah, Banjo-Kazooie, wonderful game. I adore that game as well, Hoeg. Super good. I was debating putting on my list because it is a wonderful game. So hopefully
I love
Banjo. It back one day.
It's one of those weird stories for me because it was one that I was super hyped for because it was on the videotape player at the electronic boutique in which I worked. And if you're familiar with that job, that videotape was probably only 10 minutes long. So you are hearing that a lot of times during a regular shift selling video games.
Yeah.
And so I watched that video trailer that Nintendo had put out for Banjo-Kazooie, the first one, probably 100 or 1,000 times before that game came out. And I was still excited about it. And then it lived up to that hype.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Awesome game. Great pick. Number 2 for me is Super Mario 64. I personally like Mario 64 more than Banjo-Kazooie, but they're both excellent video games. Excellent. I just love everything about that Mario 64, the movement, the level design, the music, everything still has a really great vibe that I just love being in that world. I love being in Peach's castle. That music when you get in there, do. Yeah. Yeah, you remember it's kind of like engraved in your brain if you play that game.
As soon as you said it, I did it in my head, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Still wonderful game, so fun to go through. I really like that there's the 120 stars to go for. Wonderful stuff. The only thing I dislike about it is the Yoshi tease at the end. Yoshi shows up when you get all 120 stars, gives you lives, then just leaves. They don't let you ride Yoshi or anything like that.
Little trolling from Nintendo.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So that's the only flaw I would say for that game. All right. Micah, number 1. Micah's number 1 N64 game of all time.
Yeah, so it's Mario Kart 64 because, I loved it. When I was a kid, I only knew one family with an N64, the Woodburns. And shout out to the Woodburns. They were super nice people. I haven't seen them in forever. If anyone out there knows them, and it's the same Woodburns, tell them I said hello. But they were the only people I knew with an N64. And whenever we went over their house, we'd play Mario Kart. I don't even know if they had other games. Like because they'd always be like, you guys want to play Mario Kart? And we'd always say yes. Yeah. Like my sister and I loved it. We never even said, what else you got? Like it was just like, hell yeah, dog. I would be very confused. I was the youngest kid and I would always end up looking at the wrong screen. It's like, because it'd be the 4-player mode.
Yeah.
So I would think I was doing really good, and then I would forget that, wait, you were bottom left, and I'm just like running into a fence. Right.
Yeah.
And but I was the youngest. They didn't give me too much grief for it. But I just loved that game. The afternoons that I spent at their house, playing N64. His mom would always make us cinnamon swirl Pepperidge Farm toast as a snack. Oh my God,
That's fancy.
They were wonderful. And they had a pool that we could swim in. Like it was just like peak summer vacation days spent there. And it's the only N64 game I actually played as a child when the thing was current. Yeah. So I love it regardless, but those memories have always been just some of my favorites.
Yeah, great pick, Micah. Mario 64, so much fun. Oh, I'm sorry, Mario Kart 64, so much fun. And shout out the Woodburns. They were that family you wanted to hang out with.
Dude, they were like
yeah.
Oh my God, they had a pool. The mom was super chill. She'd come in making toast. Like she'd come in with a whole plate of toast and we'd all just be eating toast playing N64. Like it was great. It was really great.
That's awesome. All right, Hoeg, your number one N64 game.
Yes, my number one. Also an easy pick for me. This was not as difficult as some of the other slots here. Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time.
Don't need to say anything else about it.
I don't need to say anything else.
I know, everyone knows.
Time travel. It's got Link. It's got Zelda.
Yeah, it's peak. It was an insane leap, Hoeg, going from A Link to Past to that game, and just how well they pulled that game off in 3D for the first time. It's insane. In my opinion, that game still holds up in many great ways, and I'd absolutely recommend everyone playing if you have not played it. Because Hoeg, my number one is also that game.
I thought it might be.
Yeah.
One of the best games. Uncontroversial.
Yeah, one of the best games of all time. One of the highest rated games of all time. It's peak. I'm not kidding out there, everybody. Try it. Give it a shot.
It really is. Peak might be used too often by some people, but this one is top of the list.
Yep.
Ocarina of Time is fantastic. If you like any of the current Zeldas, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, otherwise, you owe it to yourself to try Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Both versions are good. The N64 version's great. The 3DS version's great. Definitely give it a shot. I love
seeing it in 3D. That was one of my really kind of mind-blowing, jaw-dropping moments was having the 3DS play Ocarina of Time. It's a shame that technology isn't really used anymore, but it's still crazy looking to me.
Oh, yeah. It looked awesome in 3D. It was really cool seeing that. Micah, how do you feel about this? You played through this pretty recently.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. It's one of those things that I needed some help, mostly with like the overworld stuff. Like the dungeons themselves, I actually did pretty well with not needing a guide. I would just get stumped occasionally. My hang up in it was just figuring out like what to do next, how to actually start the next dungeon. Like that was the tricky part for me. And that's just something I struggle with in Zeldas in general. I'm not great at thinking outside the box. Yeah, you know.
Majora's Mask can be rough.
It's gonna be. I'm at least a little familiar with that because I watched the whole Game Grumps playthrough.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not that I remember it all, but I'm at least like a little familiar. But no, I really liked Ocarina of Time. It was very good. The music really cool. Like I liked that whole aspect of learning the various songs and having that just impact like the whole game pretty much. I couldn't memorize them for the life of me though. I had to keep looking at the songbook. I didn't have a memory for it, but
that's okay.
Yeah, no, I liked it a lot.
Okay, awesome.
One of the coolest parent things that I have right now is that one of my daughters plays the flute and she goes and finds music from video games that she likes to play. And among these are things like the Super Smash Brothers Ultimate theme song, which will get stuck in your head every time you hear it. But also the Ocarina songs from Ocarina of Time. So occasionally I'll just be walking around my house and I will hear Ocarina of Time music coming from the upper floor. Absolutely fantastic experience.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. You have your own personal bard playing wonderful music for you.
She is great. And it's amazing because, you watch them learn these things and she couldn't get the flute to make noise when it started out. And now she's playing. Like the Smash Brothers theme is fast. Like you have to move some real notes in that song and she can really play the flute and I'm proud of her. So this has been Dad talking about his daughter for a minute.
Proud dad.
On
Proud dad. I love it. That's good stuff. All right. Yeah. Those were our top 5 N64 games. in honor of the Nintendo 64 for episode 64. All right, let's get back into the usual run of the show. What we've been playing actually now. But before we do that, I forgot to do all this. Please check us out on patreon.com/laststandmedia. Better late than never. All that good stuff. laststandmedia.store, I believe is... Oh yeah, that is the store if you want to get some merch over there. Got stickers, shirts, all that good stuff. And please leave us a nice rating if you enjoy the show on whatever you use. Any podcast service, YouTube, all that good stuff. We appreciate it. Help us grow. All right, Micah. This is The Police. That's what you've been playing. What the hell is this game?
Okay, dude, first of all, I already beat it because I got so hooked. I beat this game in like 3 days. Years ago, my ex and I started this game together. We're having a great time playing it. We broke up though, so I never finished it. I never saw the ending of it because it was his game. And I bought myself a copy, but I was kind of waiting until I forgot some of what happened because we were maybe 4 hours in, right? So now was the time because Xenoblade Chronicles X coming out this Thursday. And I was like, I had exactly a week in between. I said, well, this is a short-ish game. Let's get into it. So you are the police chief in a very seedy city. This is set in 1985. You are being forced to retire and you have 180 days left on the force. None of that's a spoiler. That is like the premise of the game. And so you have a goal to make as much money as possible before your retirement date happens because your retirement plan got borked, essentially. And so your goal is to just make as much money as you can.
Are you embezzling this?
So that's the fun part, Rick. So you can try to be above board. And like in the game, you have like investigations where you'll get bonuses for nabbing crime bosses and things like that, solving murder cases. But also you can do shady things if you want to. And this is like, it's a management strategy game all centered around the police department, your interaction with the mayor's office, for example. And it's very Oregon Trail in the way that all the events that come up are just random. So the gameplay itself, you are watching the screen. It's like a little model of the city and the calls come in. So like, and they actually have like the dispatcher saying like, you know, we got a 211 and like, you know, you hear that all come in, which makes it really fun. But like you see the calls come in on the left-hand side of the screen. You open it, decide how many officers to send, decide if it's a real call, first of all, because you do get prank calls or false alarms. You know, you'll have it be like, a guy's reporting that someone, you know, broke into his house and it's actually that his wife came home from work early. That type of stuff. You have to determine what's a false alarm and what's not. But so the calls come in on the left-hand side, you accept the call, send your officers, and then on the right-hand side of the screen, it'll pop up after with how the mission went. And the stakes are high. Your officers can die on the job. They do not come back. There's no revives. There's no any of that. So you can lose people on the force. When you're doing actually investigations of the big crimes, your detectives can die during the case. Implied that they got too close to the truth type deal and they were taken out. So the stakes are really high and the game saves at the end of every day cycle. So you can only reload it while you're actively playing it. I had moments I had to reload it. I lost 4 officers on a single phone call and I was like, I lost my 4 best guys. Like, and I reloaded the day to, you know, try again and figure out how to actually do that call and successfully and not lose half my force. But it's really addicting because as I said, that like Oregon Trail element of it's the random nature of you don't know what the next call is going to be. You also have things like sometimes City Hall will call you and they'll say like, oh, you know, the mayor needs a police escort, and whether or not you have officers available or not, they'll get angry with you. They might cut your funding the next day because they're upset that you didn't return the favor. Like, you just have so much to manage. You have a SWAT team that you can deploy. You have a paddy wagon that you can deploy. Doing those various things improves your odds of actually like not dying. But even so, sometimes the calls are so crazy, like it's still not enough. Your guys might call for backup. You really do just have to always make sure to have officers available, because if they call for backup, you either need to retreat or just tell them just go ahead and try it. And that's when you end up losing like several dudes in one go. But yeah, the one thing about it is that it gets hectic. And it's part of what I loved about games that I talk about often, like Diner Dash back in the day. I love the part where it starts getting like a frenzy. Okay. Yeah. Like Rick knows what I'm talking about. I love the part where it's like, this feels crazy right now. You know, like I'm at the end of my rope. I don't have enough men. Like I can't, it just starts to get a little out of control. And that was the addicting thing for me, was I'm playing the little shifts and I'm like, this is like, it's not a cozy management game, but it is. Okay. The themes are incredibly dark. The like story is depressing. But when I'm, being a little dispatcher and I'm sending out all my guys, it's like I feel like I'm playing like Harvest Moon, basically, because it's just so fun.
Management. Yeah.
You're just gardening the crimes.
That's right.
Out there in the city.
Though.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's really funny.
Well, yeah, like when it comes to the investigations, for example, you delegate your detectives. You have two classes of officers. You have your beat cops, and then you have the detectives. And when you get these cases, you assign detectives to the cases. It's important to make sure that you assign people from both shifts. You have shift A and shift B. You got to assign detectives from both shifts so it's getting worked on every day. Otherwise, you won't get updates. Like you're like a real manager. And the thing with these investigations is you have to prioritize them, because the more detectives you put on a case, the faster you'll get results on it. But you also need to manage your detectives. Like they'll get burnt out if you give them too many cases. So you can't give one guy 6 different cases to work on. Like you got to manage that.
Come on, guy.
And then the way those investigations work is like they gather the clues and then you put the final touches on assembling the clues in the correct order to solve the case. I got stumped on some of those, and thankfully there are full guides for the game, because I would have them all, like I have all the correct clues, but I would have like the order switched basically.
Yeah.
And my limit was like, I'll spend, 15 minutes on this. And if I can't figure it out, we're just going to check the guide. But I did really like those investigations, even if some of them left me stumped. They were still just fun to do. And you get like your updates every day with the new clues coming in. And it was just always exciting to be like, what did they discover today? It kind of offsets how dark everything is, because some of these cases are like murders and assaults of various kinds. Like it gets heavy, but it's really fun. And it's just it's a really strange feeling of like, I'm going to solve this double homicide, and it's like wicked fun, but the whole subject matter is just so dark. The whole game. The other thing, too, with these investigations is that you can choose how far up the chain you want to take things, for example. Some of these are just looking for like one suspect. Some of them you're trying to take out a whole gang. But depending on if you like doing them or not, you can take out the lowest on the totem pole gang member and you'll get like a $10,000 bonus. It closes the whole case. Or you can take out all 4 gang members going up the chain and get way more money for doing so and actually like eliminate the gang. Cool. So they kind of give you a lot of freedom in how you want to play this. You can also fail. You can fail the investigation and the whole thing will shut down. I did that a few times and I would like reload the day. The worst was when it would happen right at the end of the day, because then I had to like replay the whole thing.
Yeah.
These
How long
are very
is like a
short.
day if you're playing through like a day?
I think it's something like 5 real-time minutes. Okay. I didn't Google it to be exact, but you choose a song at the beginning of each workday, and the songs are never long enough like to get you through the whole day. But I think each song is about 3 minutes.
Okay.
So I think the actual work days are about 5-ish minutes. So these are pretty quick cycles that you're going through.
Okay. And you described it as a management game. So you're not going in there, you're not driving the paddy wagon, you're not moving your officer around, you are managing these things. Is that correct?
Exactly. So the way the screen's presented is that you are seeing like essentially a little plastic model of the city. Like in game, it's a little plastic model that's on his desk. And then you have all your officers are down at the bottom of your screen, like cards, like trading cards.
Yeah.
And so when you accept a 911 call, and then you pick which cards you're sending out. And so, yeah, you are just observing the screen, and then you get the report of what happened. Sometimes, too, your officers will call you, or they'll radio you for support, and you have to give them advice on what to do, with sometimes horrible consequences if you make the wrong choice. They might say, like, this guy has a gun. Do we retreat? Do we taser him? Like, and you're calling the shots from headquarters. And those are always really fun. That was another layer that got me addicted, was you send them out on a call, maybe they'll ask for help. And then you're like even more invested and like more involved in the whole thing.
Yeah.
This all reminds me, and I think they must be related based on the title, of a game that I play called This Is the President, which has a big map, and you have all your advisors and you send them out across the globe to do things for you. But you are a corrupt president, and you're trying to get an amendment to the Constitution passed. So you have to like bring all of the parts of the legislature and the court system under your heel in order to get this done. I think the game has to be related based on the title, but
yeah,
I don't know for sure.
You know, so they were both published by THQ Nordic. It might be different devs, but they were both, I think, published by THQ Nordic. Looking at this page here,
usually the lawyers wouldn't let you fly that close to the sun. This is the, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's like 2 Point Hospital and stuff like that.
Yeah, they are different devs, but it seems like THQ Nordic was like, hey, maybe let's do something similar to this.
They own the IP maybe or whatever. This is this is IP, I guess. I don't know.
I was going to say, you definitely can't trademark this is but you can probably make a case that you don't want to fly this close to the sun if you're not at all related to the project whatsoever.
Let's see. Micah, Dick Whiskey wrote in. Hey, babes. So this is a hell of a coincidence. Micah, I recently played This Is the Police and was planning on jumping into Golden Sun on my Analog Pocket soon. So to that effect, how are you liking each of them? This Is the Police was interesting and had me hooked from the jump, but I got bored and fell off hard fairly quickly, maybe after only a few hours. Are you getting that type of fatigue with it? Stay frosty and remember to press X to Jason. So Micah, you already finished this game. There's no way you got fatigued by it. But it sounds like it's kind of bite-sized, like the days you go through. It almost reminds me of like a handheld game or something like that. You play 5 minutes here, you take a break, come back 5 minutes later.
It does sound like with cards and a management screen, you could drag and drop pretty easily.
Yeah.
Exactly. So one thing I'll say, if you fell off in the first couple hours, the first few hours of the game are very story heavy. You'll have like several cutscenes, do like 1 or 2 shifts of work, another cutscene. And then towards the middle of the game, you have fewer cutscenes and more consecutive days of work. And that's where I got even more hooked, because when it let you kind of just keep playing is when because like the story's really good. I'll say, like, it's really dark, very heavy. They're tackling topics like marital problems, corruption in, the mayor's office, like really things like racism, even. Like, the game does not shy away from very difficult themes, and it works with them really well. And like, as an example, there's like an event pop up, and it's like, there is a gay rights rally in town. The mayor's office wants you to shut it down. Legally, it's a peaceful protest. What do you choose? And the game is not preachy by any means. It simply presents you the facts of, what are you going to do? Are you going to do what the mayor's office wants, or are you going to do what you think is right? Like, where do you fall with this? And it's just, they handle each of these topics just exceptionally well. There's racism in the game. It's 1985. Racial slurs are used like in the game. It doesn't feel edgy or cringy. Right. It's just a representation of, this is what it looked like in potentially 1985, dealing with what feels like a sort of, it's a big city, but it definitely feels like a kind of country-ish city that you're dealing with here. And it's just like, you have to handle all that. I got hooked by that story so quickly there's a whole sub story of like your problems with your wife, and I was like dying to know what would happen.
Oh man.
Exactly, right? And like there's just domino after domino. Like when it comes to the corruption, for example, it's up to you to decide if you're going to give in or not. Because to not spoil anything, but it's just like you will be faced with many choices, and like your life is on the line depending on how you interact with these people. And it just truly is. Are you going to try and stay the straight and narrow, or are you going to try and just make your money and get out of here? And I was immediately hooked. Like, all right, here's one. There was one example where like you get a call and they're like, you have to fire all your black officers. The mayor's office flat out tells you have to fire all of them. And you decide what to do. And there will be consequences both ways. And the game just leaves it completely up to you. Like I said, like it deals with these issues. It's not preachy. It's not edgy. It truly is just, here's a list of issues and you're going to tackle them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just is very well written. Part of like the really good writing too is they pepper in humor like in the story occasionally. In the 911 calls, there's actually a good bit of humor because like some of them are just ridiculous. And like in a great way, though, you don't get sick of it. But in the story itself, when you're hit with like a funny moment in that dark, like heavy story, it really hits you. And it's just so well done. But no, I was hooked very quickly. The art style is another thing. It's really simplistic looking, but it's so impactful and honestly shocking. Like completely no spoilers. But there are moments in the game that you look at this game and the art style is basically looks like the original South Park, like when it was like construction paper on a background, right? But it is shocking, some of the images, for how simplistic it is, for the lack of gore. They still manage to shock you because of the story and the delivery, because the voice acting is impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that just had me so hooked on it. But yeah, if you don't like management games, I don't think the story will be enough to hook you in, because no, like Rick said, you're not driving the car, you're not firing on people, you are simply calling the shots. I adore management games, and I think that they're just as exciting as actually doing all those things because like the stakes are so high. But if you're not into management games, I don't think even like the great story and great voice acting is gonna hook you in.
You said something interesting, Micah, about kind of your. I was surprised, but like you're talking about how chaotic it gets and stuff like that, and you were like saying how much you liked that, and I was like, this doesn't sound like the Micah I know. What is this? But I guess for management games, you're really into that. That is interesting.
Well, actually, it's funny you say that because the game has just randomly, the game will kind of give you like mini games just every so often. One of them is a Dr. Mario clone, and I immediately panicked and started screaming. Like, cause I was like, I don't know how to play this. I was like, Colin, like, how do you play Dr. Mario? Cause like, it doesn't tell you anything. You just start playing it. And he's like, you got to line up the colors. I was like, fuck. And like, I lost so quickly.
That's really funny.
So yeah, when it comes to the chaos of a very simple game where you match colors, I'm freaking out. When it comes to the chaos of I have 6 911 calls coming in and no available officers, I'm like foaming at the mouth for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I love those
funny.
games.
Yeah.
I love a strategic management game. You mentioned Diner Dash. It's a game I haven't thought about in years and years and years. But there is a certain amount of fun of spinning all these plates at once, not letting them all drop to the floor. No pun intended for Diner Dash. But seeing you do that and thinking about it while you're doing it, saying, I'm not going to be able to keep this up very long, and then hopefully getting to the end of your day successfully. So I totally get that.
Yeah, exactly. Because you also, too, sometimes your days are just set up almost to fail. You have to deal with your officers calling out, and sometimes they just don't show up. And then you have to decide whether or not you fire them. Sometimes they ask to call off, and you have to decide whether you give them a day. They might get angry with you if you don't give them the time off. But the reasons can be ridiculous. Like one guy, will try and call out and be like, "Oh, my cat, had too much cream. Can I stay home?" Or one guy was like, "Can I go to the movies?" It's like, you can't go to the movies. We're cops. We have a city to save. But if you deny their request, they might just not show up the next day. And so it's like sometimes you start off the day and you're already down several officers simply because it's like, oh, this guy wanted to go to the movies. This guy showed up drunk. Because I let my officers, so they show up drunk sometimes. And one time I was like, forget it, you're staying. So they're like, can I go home? It's like, no, you're staying. And the drunk officers all died in car accidents.
Oh, my God.
I shouldn't have let them work.
Did you play this on your Switch or your Xbox?
So I had this for Xbox. So I played it on my Logitech G Cloud handheld for the most part. And this is a game with multiple outcomes. I will say, though, because I was torn on doing a replay or not. The game does have multiple endings. I kind of went ahead and Googled them because it is like, 20-ish hours. I don't know how long I played it because the Xbox glitched and didn't keep track of my playtime. And there's no internal clock in the game, like, because there's no save files. So I don't know how long I played it for. How long to beat lists as around 20 hours. That feels correct, but I got to be honest, I have that thing where I have no internal clock. So I could have played it for 3 hours. I could have played it for 60. I don't feel time, right? But yeah, it was perfect to play on handheld because I worried a little bit, not that there's a ton going on screen, but I was like, I played it on the TV and you have like the nice big display. Is it going to translate well to handheld? It did. I also think it's available on mobile, which this is something that actually would work well because you are just kind of picking and choosing things, and it's not something that needs like super great graphics or anything. You're just chugging along and giving out all your little tasks, deciding how corrupt you want to be. Dude, when your officers die, you can choose to not send in the paperwork right away and just keep collecting their paycheck. Sometimes it works out to have a dead officer on the force because then City Hall will be mad at you and they're like, you got to fire someone. It's like, I'll fire this guy. Yeah. He was already dead.
Yeah. That's really funny. Yes, Micah, it is on mobile. It's on everything pretty much. But if you're curious about the game, it's $3.74 on Steam right now.
Excellent.
So you can check it out there for really cheap. I don't know about anything else, but just on Steam, it's on sale. So sounds cool, Micah. Yeah, you really love your strategy / sim kind of games. It's really fun. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was something very different. Of course, I'm usually playing something Harvest Moon-ish, Story of Seasons. This is completely different, a very adult game. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Like, this game's fucking rough at points. I loved it. But I wouldn't give this to a 12-year-old. Like, I mean it.
Yeah.
It's very different, though, from the type of management games I usually play. And I just loved it. Man, I just really highly recommend this to anyone who is interested in like real-time management games. Like I said, the Oregon Trail vibes that it gave me, I was just like, hell yeah, dog. Like misfortune at every corner. It's like, oh, I pissed off the union boss. Great. Like, now what's he going to do? I love the whole aspect too of just choosing who you're going to ally yourself with. Like, you just have multiple people throughout the game approaching you kind of for like backdoor deals, and it's up to you who you're going to choose. Sometimes they have conflicts with each other. You need to pick a side. The consequences just keep stacking. Like, this is like the ultimate, like the dominoes start falling right at the beginning and they just roll through all the way to the end.
That's awesome.
It's really, really good. And there is a sequel, so I'm definitely going to play that.
Okay, cool.
And there's apparently a President game made by a completely different developer.
Yeah.
So I can recommend that for as far as I've gotten in that game. Like you just mentioned with respect to This Is the Police, it's very dark. It presupposes an entirely corrupt American president that is trying to get amendments passed for his own nefarious reasons. It avoids most of the present day political stances, but it does have some things to say about the way the United States government is organized. So your mileage may vary.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Hoeg, Wanderstop.
Yes. Speaking of things like a Harvest Moon or a Story of Seasons, Wanderstop, for those that don't know, is ostensibly a cozy game in which you run a magical tea shop in a magical forest, collecting tea leaves, drying those tea leaves, putting different seeds in the ground in different geometric shapes to get different fruits to flavor the teas that you make. But that is a really superficial take on this particular game. The reason this game is as interesting as it actually is like so many other indie games that we've seen in this space, this is a game that is very interested in talking about mental health. Unlike those games, this one is really well written. And I don't mean to disparage every other indie game that tackles mental health. I think it's important stuff to talk about. But a lot of them, in my experience, feel a little bit superficial with how they talk about these things and maybe aren't the best mechanisms to understand whatever it is that you're talking about from a psychology or therapy standpoint. This is a game that is focused on mental health and in a very particular way that honestly hits close to home for me. And that is it's interested in perfectionism and kind of accomplishment-seeking behavior and all or nothing thinking, in that the main character of this game is a fighter. And we don't really get a lot of extra context on that, but she goes and she fights for a living in arenas of some kind. And she's undefeated for years in her background. And then she's suddenly not undefeated anymore. She loses a couple of fights. She loses her interest. She loses her ability, and she has a lot of self-doubt. She runs into this magical forest. She finds herself at this tea shop, and she's having conversations with the owner of the tea shop that sound an awful lot like my therapy sessions after being in the hospital. And honestly, the writing here is good enough and it is direct enough that I will tell you, playing the intro of this game, which I didn't know this was the background of this game before I started. I just knew I was running a tea shop. It had good graphics and it interested me, is on point enough that it was actually a little bit of an area of sensitivity for me in the first time I turned it on. So I want to give it full credit because I think it's top of class in writing. I think it writes interesting characters. The main character, the character that owns the tea shop, the characters that will come to the tea shop that you have to serve tea to, all have different takes on your main character's particular problem, her perfectionism, becoming more mindful as the owner of the tea shop wants her to be, thinking about the way she judges herself in her thoughts and things like that. And that writing is exceptional, as I've mentioned. This is written by, I believe it's written by, it's certainly from a studio that is led by the writer of the Stanley Parable, which is one of my favorite pieces of writing in gaming. It's significantly more serious of an approach than Stanley Parable, which takes kind of a joyful or quirky look at such lighthearted topics as predestination and free will. But this is a little bit more serious. It's a little bit more directed. It is still top of class in writing. But as a aside to this, the gameplay is maybe not as strong as it could be. Like I said, you're collecting tea leaves, you're planting seeds in the ground, you're restarting over and over again, and that's part of what it's talking about with respect to psychology and mental health. But it isn't very engaging to make the tea. And I think more problematically for what this is actually constructed to be, it wants you to be mindful. It wants you to be thinking about your thoughts. It wants you to be relaxing in a certain important way. That's the story it's telling with all the writing. It actually probably gives you too many tasks, too many things to aim at, too many goals for what is this kind of mindfulness experience. But I don't want to take too much away from it from that. Just I note that it probably is trying to split the baby. It's trying to walk this thin line and probably doesn't succeed as best as it could, while still being well written, still having wonderful graphics, still being very interesting to play. I would consider Wanderstop to be good, but not great, when I had hoped for it to be great. And obviously, just based on what I said at the top here about sensitivity and about the writing, I think it's an important topic. I think it's good that people are talking about these things. I suffer from a certain amount of perfectionism myself, and I thought that a lot of what they had to say with the various characters and the things that they were putting in this story were things that I had heard in my own therapy sessions, had heard through my own medical experience, and I think that's good and useful. But where the game is probably built around trying to get you to the same place that you'd get in therapy with those kinds of things, I think it somewhat fails there. And so I wish it were a little better than it is.
Yeah. You said some of the tasks, like there's a lot of tasks actually for you to do, you're saying, aside from like, I guess, collecting tea leaves and drying them and all that kind of stuff. What else are you doing?
Yes. So what I mean by that is you have customers come to the store and then you'll have conversations with them. That's where all the great writing comes from. And then they will ask for a certain kind of tea usually. They have different things that the different customers will ask for. They'll ask for a different kind of tea, and you'll have to think about how to get that particular tea made and what it is that they might even be asking for. It's really more of a potion simulator than a tea shop. So all of these teas do something different. They have an effect on your memory or they help your pain. And you'll have to kind of analyze in conversational form what it is that these people want and then get everything ready to actually make that tea for them. And so because you'll have multiple customers doing that at the same time, because you'll have different things that you have to do in terms of getting those tea leaves and drying them over a timer, you're really kind of managing at an executive level a lot of different things at once. Where, and this is just my opinion, I think this game, through everything that it's aimed at from its characters and its writing, really wants to be less kind of gamified in the way that it's designed. And I bring up a game that I think I've mentioned on this channel before, which is a game called Endless Ocean on the Switch, which is a game that honestly doesn't have a ton going for it. It's not great graphically, doesn't have great game design. It doesn't do any of these things that you would say or make it a top AAA type game. But certainly for me, in the last couple of years, it has been the game that is the most successful at essentially making me cognizant of my thought process and working as therapy because you're doing things on such a kind of rote basis. You're going and you're looking at fish, you're taking their pictures, you're working with a lot of different people at once, that I think that that's what this game was really aimed at. And instead, it's lightly gamified in a way that makes you cognizant of everything that you're doing and whether or not you're doing it efficiently in a way that I think is exactly opposite of what it's trying to say about productivity and mindfulness and all these other good words that we'd have in therapy.
Cool. Do you think you'll continue with it, Hoeg?
Honestly, this is the one that's probably the most likely for me to drop off of. I'm in like the third cycle, for lack of a better word, of what this game's doing. And I like all the writing. And I do enjoy meeting these characters and seeing exactly what these writers have to say about the main character's predicament. But I don't think I'm likely to see this one through to the end.
Okay. Sounds interesting, yeah.
It's really well done as an indie. It's got top-of-the-line graphics, top-of-the-line writing, important things to consider and discuss. It's just not all that fun to play. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah. I'm trying to see. Is this PS5 only or PC PS5 only? Let me see.
I'm playing it on my PlayStation.
Oh, no, yeah. It's on everything except Switch. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the Switch could run it.
No,
it's
probably
not. It's
a
little bit graphically intense for that.
Yeah, I think visually it looks really nice, Hoeg. I like the colors a lot. They're very like bright pastel colors. They look awesome.
It's gorgeous. I would call it Dr. Seussian.
Yeah.
All of the plants are strange shapes. All the colors remind me of The Witness, if you remember that game. It's really bright.
Cool. All right. Next for me, I'm curious if your history with this, Hoeg. I've been playing through Onimusha Warlords, the PS2 classic. Have you played this, Hoeg?
I honestly don't know.
Okay, it came out a long time ago, 2001.
I played a lot of Onimushas. Okay. I don't remember Warlords.
It's the first one.
Oh, okay.
Then yes.
Yes, I played Onimusha 1.
Yeah, so you played Onimusha 1. Okay, yeah. So there is a remaster of 2 coming out in May. So I was like, okay, it's time to get ready again. I love Onimusha. I played it probably around when it came out back in 2001. Really liked it. Played the remaster we got in 2019. Didn't think we were going to get more. But thankfully, we're getting a new Onimusha that looks awesome. I'm very excited about that. And we're getting a remaster of 2. So I was like, all right, it's time to revisit the remaster of this. And for anyone who doesn't know, this is, just to put it simply, it's like Resident Evil, but samurais, essentially. Fixed cameras, you're going through there, you're chopping up a bunch of demons, though. You don't got ammo, you're not managing resources like ammo. Well, you do have some. There's like, you can get a gun, but you mostly chopping stuff. It's like Devil May Cry light. Very light Devil May Cry. So this is before Devil May Cry. But yeah, you play as a samurai or a ronin named Samanosuke, who is going through essentially like a demon castle. Mostly in a castle, kind of like the Spencer Mansion, I guess you could say. But yeah, going through this area, you're trying to rescue this princess that got captured by Obunaga, Nobunaga. Sorry, he is a demon now this time around. So
yes, this is where my understanding of Nobunaga's history came from.
Yeah, he's been in many video games. Yeah, they've done
Turns
a lot.
out, not an actual demon lord, but
no,
you wouldn't
not a
know
demon
from
lord.
Onimusha.
But in Onimusha, he is a demon lord. But yeah, you're going through environments. I want to say I really like the way this game looks. It has a lot of those old pre-rendered backgrounds, and I think they did a good job with the remaster. They look pretty damn good, in all things considered. I just have such a soft spot in my heart for these. Oh, you nostalgic for pre-rendered backgrounds and stuff as well?
I certainly loved how they were done in Resident Evil.
Yeah.
This is a remaster. This isn't like a Resident Evil 1.
No, it's not a remake.
Redo.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. They just kind of upscaled it and all that kind of stuff. So, also the game is pretty short. I'll say if you go through your first time, it's probably going to be like 6 hours, maybe. I would say like that. There's some extra stuff you can do, like this Demon Realm stuff. If any of you have played Devil May Cry, it's like the Bloody Palace where you go through floors of enemies just fighting guys and stuff like that. They have something similar to that. But it's a pretty short game overall, but it has replay value, kind of like Resident Evil games and stuff like that. You can unlock things like costumes and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you're going through this Japanese setting, this castle, the kind of surrounding areas. It looks great. Really cool music. The demons all look really cool. You're chopping up guys, and a big thing about Onimusha is when you kill people, you kind of absorb their souls. Like if any of you have seen that new trailer, they kind of show that right away. Like the souls being sucked into a gauntlet. That is just 100% Onimusha. And it has fixed cameras, which I'm a big fan of. I always love fixed cameras. But I will say it's very old feeling in a lot of ways. And a lot of people who aren't used to this kind of stuff probably won't enjoy it a lot of the times because you are kind of a light action game, chopping dudes up, and you're moving through stuff and the camera's changing as you're moving, and the direction you got to hold to move in certain ways changes as well. So there is getting used to that sense. There is a lock-on button, but it's still you kind of struggle with the controls a little bit. And even I do, and I've played many, many fixed camera games with tank controls. So that's there. You can use an analog stick to move around, which is a little smoother than like the D-pad, but they did a couple quality of life things like that. One quality of life thing I wish they did is you cannot skip cutscenes in this game. And there's one point in particular in the game where it can go several minutes. If you die, you have to sit through cutscenes and stuff like that, and you have to kind of sit through things. So that's a bummer, I would say. And I was kind of surprised they left that in there because it seems weird to me. But other than that, it's been really fun. There's a couple weapons to get through. So you start with your basic katana. Like God of War games, before God of War, you get the souls and you upgrade these at stuff, and they kind of transform and deal more damage. First one you get is like a blue sword that looks more like a katana, and each weapon has a magic tied to it. So the blue one is lightning is the power. So with triangle, you can use a special attack, and with the sword, he does like a bunch of quick slashes, and it's like thunder strike at the end. It's really cool. The second weapon you get is like more of a traditional like great sword, I would say, and it has like fire magic tied to it, so you can do like cool fire attacks. And there's one more weapon you can get, like a melee one. It's like a wind spear, like a double-sided glaive, I would say, with some wind magic, which is fun. There's a bow you can get, you can shoot range. There's a gun you can get later on to shoot range as well. The story is kind of cool. It's told like Resident Evil in the sense of like you finding documents and notes and stuff like that, and kind of learning what's going on there, like about the demons, and you're getting notes from the demons themselves. And there's some, of course, like Resident Evil puzzles. One puzzle in particular, I'm sure many people know if you've played this game, is the water puzzle, where you have a time limit to do something like that. And if you die, you have to do several minutes over again, which is a real problem. But that's kind of the only annoying roadblock I'd say in the game overall. But there's some fun ones like switching numbers around, stuff like that. They're pretty simple. So if you like those in Resident Evil games, you're going to have a good time. But like I said, it's like Resident Evil Samurai Edition, essentially. So if you like Resident Evil games, you're going to have a good time, I think, overall. Ho, do you remember enjoying it when you played it?
I do. You've actually brought back quite a few memories of my playing this. It's like, yes, I definitely played that. I remember that playtime as well, being a shorter game, which I remember not loving at the time. As it stands right now in my life today, 6 hours sounds fantastic. That would be great to knock out a game.
Yeah. It's probably like 6 hours first playthrough. But this was like, at the time, I think like one of the first really big PS2 games. Because it came out January, I want to say, of 2001. And PS2 came out in 2000 here, like October or something like that, I want to say. So it was like the first big like Capcom AAA game that I remember at the time. And of course, it went on to do very well for Capcom. There's 5 Onimusha games, I want to say, on PS2, including the fighting game. So
I remember liking it. I remember being a little disappointed at the time because I was a big Resident Evil 2 fan, and this did not meet that level for me.
No, yeah.
But I remember liking this series, especially at some point you time travel to modern Paris, and you're like a Paris cop.
Yeah, that's the third game.
I remember enjoying that.
With Jean Reno in the game. The actor is actually in it, yeah. But yeah, it's a really cool game. If you want to kind of it's $10, at least on Steam right now, which is a very fair price. Oh, it's $10 on PSN too, so it's on sale right now. It's a very fair price, in my opinion, for that game. And the 2 remasters coming out in May, so if you want to get caught up for that, you want some context before the new one comes out next year, this is a good time to hop in. Micah, this sounds like something you would never play, correct?
Yeah, because I was very unfamiliar with this series, and as we mentioned, like punching up you and Gene being excited for the remakes. But yeah, the description of it's like Resident Evil, and that's not my speed at all.
Yeah, you don't got to manage ammo though. Yeah, it's not really scary.
It's not scary. You're fighting demons, but it's an action game.
Yeah, it's more action than like horror, I would say.
Is it puzzly?
Yes, there's puzzles.
Yeah. So like that aspect of Resident Evil is actually worse for me than the fear.
Look, the only castles Capcom knows has doors locked with medallions and things. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. So not as quite as puzzle heavy, I'd say, as Resident Evil, but there's definitely puzzles. So yeah, Micah, you're probably out. But I know Colin's a big fan of it, so shout out Onimusha. It's been fun playing through it. Can't wait to finish it in a couple days because I didn't finish it the first run. But yeah, I love that game. It's awesome.
And $10 is an easy pickup for me. I'm glad that you told me that this exists.
$10, yeah, remaster. Check it out.
Well, dude, and like Hoeg said, like a 6-hour game. Yeah, when I was in college, it'd be like, I'm not paying for a game that's only 6 hours. But now it's like, hell yeah, dog, I can finish that game actually. You know, and not feel stressed about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. The best patron member east of the Mississippi wrote in. Hey, Summoners. I just played through Onimusha for the first time this year, and I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed it. However, my biggest complaint is the unskippable cutscenes. I got the Platinum Trophy and combined my no healing items and no upgrade into a single run. So you can imagine I had to replay bosses multiple times. Watching a 2-minute cutscene only to die after 30 seconds is a certain level of rage that only old school games can accomplish.
Yes, this was standard. This was standard design stuff, folks. I'm telling you, we live a good life right now where developers know we're not going to make you run through the opening cutscene to the boss again, or at least the good ones do. And so this was the way it was. I agree with you, Brad, that I would have thought that if you're going to remaster it, this is the kind of thing that you can change relatively easily. I'm not behind the scenes.
Yeah, quick quality of life thing, but I don't know why they didn't. Let's see here. This is from Jonathan Gold. Hey, Brad, I just played Onimusha for the first time last week. I thought the game was really cool, but holy shit, were those cameras rough. Did the clunky nature of the game bother you? It doesn't really bother me because I understand what this game is and when it was made, and I have that context, I suppose. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a game from 2001. So I can kind of put up with a lot of this kind of stuff. But I think if you're not used to that kind of stuff, it could be much more bothersome for many people. Like I can imagine Micah just getting furious at some of this stuff. I could just see it in my head.
Well, I do think rendered backgrounds and pre-placed cameras can give you an air of cinematography that you can lose when you're just always over the shoulder or centered in main screen.
Absolutely.
So I love that in these games. I always have, but nobody's ever solved for getting rid of some of that tank controller clunkiness.
Right.
You can make it more direct control, but when the camera shifts, you're still going to have to figure out what direction you're pointing. And so I think it's worth it, certainly for games that are designed around it. But I can understand people that didn't grow up in that era or didn't get used to even thinking about tank controls for these kinds of things being upset with it because it's just not the way games are made right now.
Yeah. 100% I agree, Hoeg. I love fixed camera angles and stuff like that. I love the perspective it gives you, that cinematic angle you were saying. It's great. I love that. And I love I'll take the trade-off pretty much most of the time for games, especially when the combat isn't essential or like super deep or super punishing, I would say.
Well, you described it as predecessor to Devil May Cry. I think that's right. But people shouldn't be confused. It's nothing like Devil May Cry in terms
you're
of
not.
all the
You're not air
combos
juggling
and
and stuff like that. You're not like getting rankings for combat and stuff like that. There are rankings for like finishing the game though, like Resident Evil games. You get ranks like that, so that's cool.
And it sounds like from that commentary, you get bonuses for doing it without heals and things like that.
That's for like trophies and stuff.
Sure.
So if you want to chase those, they're there. All right, guys, it's time for Sort It Out. On this segment, we just talk about something that's bothering us in the game industry. Could be a game, company, person and company, whatever, however personal you want to get. Hoeg, is there anything you think needs sorting out this week?
Yes, I would like to talk about short-sightedness.
Oh,
and this came to mind for me. It's a topic that I think about a lot with the cancellation and however you want to describe it of the Star Wars Hunters game. Which, if you didn't see in the news, is being pulled offline. That's not unusual for a live service game. But part of the story that we've seen is that they're not going to give refunds to people that have already purchased things like the season pass for what's going to get cut off in midstream. And I understand that. I can tell you all the reasons why the end user license agreement and the law would allow for that kind of step, because you've signed up to certain contractual provisions, et cetera, et cetera. I could make a virtual legality about it. That doesn't make it good business sense.
Right.
And I think sometimes developers and publishers make decisions in the short term that can make sense, but that ultimately cut off their knees in the future. And I see this a lot with live service games. I also think about it a lot with respect to movies. Right. One of the other things that you're seeing right now is that the box office is way down. Maybe that's because of the quality of movies. Maybe that's because people in this generation have moved on to experiencing movies in a different way. But a lot of it is because, especially after COVID, the movie producers, the studios themselves, have been reducing the window that they're in the box office and restricted from home viewing to such a short amount of time that even I, who loves the movie theater experience here in Southeast Michigan, I have a favorite theater. I love going to the movies. It always seemed like essentially a cheaper visit to the theme park for my family growing up. And I love it. We'll still say, okay, well, it's only probably not going to be available on Fandango at home or wherever else I'm buying a movie here at my house for a week or two. I would really have to want to see something very badly to take that step to go out. And I think that we are seeing in the box office performance of movies that same kind of short-sighted thinking eliminate an entire revenue stream for movie producers. So I would have game developers take note of that. I would have publishers take note of things like that and be aware that you do train your consumer base for thinking certain things about what it is that you're putting out there on the marketplace, including, but not limited to, maybe I don't buy a season pass if this thing isn't the most popular thing ever. By comparison, and I know this was a tire fire of a release, and I know I'm the only person seemingly on the entire internet that enjoyed it, but by comparison, when Sony released Concord and it failed, they gave me back my money that I didn't ask for the entire game, let alone cosmetics. I don't even know if they were selling any on Concord. It was so short-lived. But it really does matter how you as a business treat your consumers and your potential consumers. And I think sometimes that's lost in the weeds. Yeah. So overall, Zynga, Star Wars Hunters, I understand the situation, but you should really try to make sure that you don't disincentivize every future purchase for anything that you might want to release in the future.
Sort it out.
Sort it out.
All right. Micah, what about you? Is there anything this week for you?
Yeah. A small note. Sorted out. Ubisoft made a weird post on Facebook, and I sent a screenshot of it to Colin, so I was like, this is just weird. The official Assassin's Creed Facebook page made a post, which is now gone, but it just said, "We accept advertising posts on our company page. If anyone is interested, please contact us via page Ubisoft support. Thank you."
Huh?
Now, it seems like this was actually supposed to be a reply to like an email or a direct message, and it got posted just as a status on Facebook. It's now gone. I don't think it was like a hacking or anything, because they didn't make a post saying the egregious post before were not us. Like, this seems very official of they were replying to someone interested in advertising, but it is just such a shit show. over at Ubisoft, and people were clowning on this post. It had so many laugh reactions, so many people saying they're so desperate for money that they're posting publicly that they're accepting advertising spots on their page. And it just was, it's like, Ubisoft, what are we doing, man? But it does it gives a little glimpse into the inner workings of this company that a lot of us are watching and saying, like, what are they doing these days? So sorted out Ubisoft, specifically the social media team, who's also asleep at the wheel along with the rest of the company.
Yeah, this feels like the highest stakes thing for Ubisoft in a long time, this game.
Yes.
They need a huge win with this game. They've had a hard time with this game, and financially they're not doing very well business-wise.
Dude, it's really a shame. I've said before in the past, like, I was a huge Assassin's Creed fan. I simply wasn't a fan of the new direction that they took, but I was happy people were enjoying the games. But this is just such a series of missteps because it's like, dude, it's not even about the character choices. It's the fact that you did things like having fruits in the wrong season altogether. And it's supposed to be authentically Japan because that's the point of Assassin's Creed. It's giving you like look, like you're in an authentic representation of this place. I know there's magical realism and shit mixed in, but like it's supposed to be Japan in this time period. And you have the wrong fruits. It's a level of just a lack of polish at the end of the day that for me is like, if this was the one where you wanted to try and hook me back in, because hell yeah, I wanted them to go to Japan. Of course I did. But I'm not too interested based on what I've seen so far.
Yeah. I think for me, Micah, well, I've played most Assassin's Creeds. I didn't finish Mirage. When I was playing Mirage, I was like, I just need to stop. I need to take a break. I've had enough. Like, I did finish Valhalla. I actually did finish it, and it was way too long, but I did.
I can't believe anybody finished Valhalla.
I know.
I said this last time, but I can't believe it.
I didn't finish it, and I am a stickler for finishing games because it hurts me not to. Same with I'll power through a horrible book, but like I just was like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
I love Assassin's Creed. I liked Valhalla quite a lot, but there was no way I was finishing that game.
It's a long game. Yeah. So I'm personally not going to play this right now. Maybe I'll check it out down the line and get it on a sale or something like that. But the Japan setting is cool. And I asked for this. I wanted this a long time ago. To me, it's kind of like a little too late kind of thing where I'm like, oh, it's cool, but I'm not like super excited about it, I suppose. I think Ghost of Tsushima kind of took a lot of the wind out of my sails for that, getting excited for that, especially with Yote now coming around as well. But it's coming out real soon. I think by the time people hear this, the review embargoes will be out, so we'll hear all about it and see what people think about it. But I hope people who are going to play it enjoy it. Hoeg, are you going to play it?
Yeah, I'm compromised on this topic. My pre-order is ready. I think the game might already be loaded up.
Oh, okay.
On my system. I love Assassin's Creed. I love it for exactly the reasons Micah mentioned. I like it as a historical tourism simulator.
Yeah.
I like to go and walk around ancient Egypt and think, this is really cool. And how amazing is it that thousands of people around the world made this for me to run around in? I love that. And I don't know whether or not some of the stuff that people have found about the Japanese setting or some of the things that are happening in Shadows are going to bother me. I tend to doubt it, because I love this series as much as I do. But there's no question Ubisoft is banking on this game being something like the best-selling game of all time. It's not going to be that. It is going to be popular.
Yeah.
Shadows is going to sell a lot, and people need to get ready for that. But it's not going to save Ubisoft. I think there is certainly a business and legal conversation to be had around what Ubisoft looks like after this. I've said it in a number of places. I think there's no question that company is going to have to contract. I think there are going to be people whose lives are affected. I think, unfortunately, that's a function of what appears to be some fairly poor management directions for a long period of time. And even with some of the rumors that we see coming out about spin-offs and putting assets separate from some of their more toxic situations at Ubisoft isn't going to save the structure of the company as it stands right now.
Right.
And so I think that's a shame for me personally, because I love a lot of what Ubisoft makes. I know that's not shared across the internet as a known commodity, but I love Far Cry. I really, really enjoyed Star Wars Outlaws. I have been on this channel talking about how much I love Anno. Speaking of strategic management games, Micah. Anno is one of my favorites ever made. They're working on one set in the Roman Empire that I'm really excited about coming out very soon. And if Ubisoft dissolves and doesn't make any of these cool things anymore, I will be very sad about that. I don't think that's ultimately going to happen because their assets are worth a lot separate from everything else that goes with the company. But certainly calling them out, saying sort it out for getting all of their ducks in a row when those ducks seem to be cast to the winds right now is totally, totally valid.
What do you think about the recent rumors, Hoeg, of other companies looking at their IP to purchase? What was it, like Xbox and Activision or something like that? I forgot who it was.
Well, certainly Tencent.
Yeah.
They're already invested pretty deeply in Ubisoft. So one of the things that's difficult about the Ubisoft story, and I've been on the record with Colin on this in Sacred Symbols Plus, is that you've got a founding family of that company that is clearly very much not interested in giving up control. So usually what you have when you have some management snafus, when you go in a direction that maybe the market doesn't appreciate, is you have the investors cause some noise, take control of the board and everything else that goes into managing a company and move on with their lives. But in this particular case, the founding family doesn't want to go through that process. All the investors start to get a little bit concerned that they're going to lose all their money because the company's going to just be scuttled on the rocks of commerce. And so that's creating some of the problems here, is that control fight is happening at the same time. I don't know how that winds up. One reason I don't know how that winds up is because Ubisoft survived a hostile takeover attempt already. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things you see happen with companies and founders and people involved in companies is that they tend to think that history is a predictor of the future. And so if we fend it off Vivendi, we can fend off Tencent or any other angry investors, and everything's going to turn around if we can just get across this next milestone, this next hurdle, the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Certainly that wasn't helped by multiple delays for them. Right. But here we are now, and basically it seems like we haven't just bet the house on this game. We've bet the whole company and maybe the land that the company sits on. And that's unlikely to pay dividends for Ubisoft. And that's the situation they find themselves in right now.
Yeah. Yeah, they're in a sticky situation for sure right now. For me, so since like I think beginning of the year or close to it, I've been trying to buy new monitors. I was trying to get OLED 4K 27-inch monitors from Asus, and they were just sold out forever, months and months and months. And I used to check almost every day. So earlier, I think this week, or like last week, I think on Thursday or Friday, they had them in stock online. I was like, oh shit, they finally have them. I was like, all right, I've been waiting, I've been saving for these. I'm going to buy them right now. Go on their website, get 2 of them for 2 monitors and all that kind of stuff. Go to checkout, and they wouldn't let me buy them outright. The only thing they were offering was like a finance plan and stuff like that, or like financial assistance or paying over time. I was like, no, just let me buy these right now. Like, I don't want to take out a loan to do this or anything like that. And I couldn't do it on their website. So luckily I went to Micro Center by me, and I just compromised and got 32 inches. But they're fine. I've gotten used to them, but they are big. But and they're relatively the same price, so it's not that big of a deal. But I'm just like, dude, how hard is it for me to give you my money? Just let me buy these stupid monitors. Like, I have the money. I'm willing to buy it right now. I'm not buying a car or something like that. I'm not spending $30,000 on this thing. It's ridiculous. It's like, come on, guys. And I checked to see if it's like, oh, maybe because I'm trying to buy 2 at one time. Let me try to buy 1 at a time. Nope, still same thing. So I don't know what's going on with your website, but it makes me never want to use your website ever again. And I probably won't. So sort out Ace's website. You just lost money from me from there. Could have bought it from you directly. Way to go, idiots. All right. Let's go to the exact. Oh, wait, we have the audience. We got to go through the audience now. We got a long one right here from Parker Luckenbach. What's up, El Toro 20 Stair Summoners? Just for context, everyone, this is a famous skateboarding spot in El Toro High School. Huge 20 stair. Sort it the fuck out, EA and Studio full circle. Earlier this week, EA added a cosmic microtransaction shop to the invite-only closed alpha test for Skate. Currently, packs are tiered at $5, $10, $25, $50, and $100. This is absolutely ridiculous to see in a game that exists in an invite-only pre-alpha state. The play environment and physics aren't finished. The studio has stated the launch state of the game will have a completely different map. I don't have a problem with paid cosmetics in a beta state. It's been common in free-to-play games on PC for over a decade. But this is a step too far by adding microtransactions to a pre-alpha game by a AAA publisher. An email sent to playtesters stated, "We want to provide a positive experience when purchasing items from Skate Store. To ensure we achieve these goals at early access, we have enabled the option to purchase and use virtual currency, Sandvan Bucks, in parentheses, in our ongoing closed alpha playtest. Your feedback will be greatly appreciated in providing a great experience at early access launch. Account progress may reset periodically throughout the playtest and will fully reset before early access. Purchase made with Sandvan Bucks will be converted back to Sandvan Bucks of an equivalent value and available in your account at early access launch. Please make sure you use the same EA account for both playtest and early access, your Steam, or for your Sandvan Bucks."
I like how they use the name multiple times there.
What do you think about all this, Hoeg, right now?
Well, I mean, it does sound like they are testing their commercial capability with this software. I think even the commenter would be understanding of that as a process. I think the reason that the tiers are referenced as part of this message is that you probably don't expect to see that at full price. You'd see some kind of flat payment structure just to test that everything's working behind the scenes there. To me, outside of the pricing, this doesn't strike me as something that shocks the conscience or anything like that, but it's possible that I'm just numb to publishers and their behavior at this point.
Yeah.
And so they have some stuff they want to try to sell. They sell it to their essential contract testers here in the invite-only private. Doesn't really change things for my mind from the actual early access launch. It obviously sounds, even from the paragraphs that are included in this message, that it's going to be a pretty clunky transition for whatever you buy immediately being converted back into currency when you go over to the early access. So I'm not sure anybody would want to invest in this. I'm not sure how useful it is to Electronic Arts on the whole. Yeah. But again, corporate lawyer, I'm a little bit tilted on this stuff anyway. I don't object to EA saying you can give us this money if you want, and then you saying I don't want. So there we go.
Yeah, I think it's just like a monkey's paw thing, Hoeg, for me, where it's like, oh, nice, Skate's coming back, cool. And then it's just like, well, here's a bunch of microtransactions already in the game. It's just like, oh, man, it's like, you have such a loyal fan base, I guess, for this game, like a diehard fan base for Skate. And it's great you're bringing it back, but it is just like, not like this, man. Come on, guys. It's like, for the invite-only pre-alpha or whatever it is, where they're still doing a bunch of different assets, like, it's just weird to focus on the microtransactions for now. I'm confident, Hoeg, they could figure this out without even having to test it. They're EA. They got microtransactions down. They own FIFA. They have all their sports games. They know exactly what they're doing.
I mean, maybe, but it's a new app. You still want to make sure the wires are crossed before you take people's money.
Yeah, but it's like, can we just like focus on the skating, the gameplay stuff for now? It's like, we're already doing this already.
Again, corporate lawyer here. I'm going to sound like a shill, but I'm not sure it's the same people that are responsible for those things. So I believe that they can work on the skateboarding and try to make sure that it's good. I can't promise you that it will be without picking up all the resources of the company and having people otherwise trying to go get your money in different ways. I totally understand, by the way, the complaint about the signaling being that, okay, you're more invested in figuring out how to sell me microtransactions than make my skateboarding fun. I get that. I think you're right there in terms of the feel of this kind of message is, oh, right, I'm just a deep pocket for you to put your hand in. I get it. Yeah. And I can understand having negative feelings about that. I just think the overall concept doesn't rise to the level of me becoming more offended than I am as a kind of natural Hulk-like level at the way publishers and developers work.
I guess just for like premium AAA price from games. Yeah. And a lot of people have kind of gotten over this and just accepted it. Like you're saying, Hoeg, it's like, when I was ranting about Assassin's Creed before, it's like you spend $70 and they're still going to have like $300 worth of stuff for you to buy in their shop. It's just like, come, just fucking relax, guys. All right. Just put that in the game, for God's sakes. Like, I'm still like kind of old man yelling at Cloud about that stuff.
I get it.
Oh yeah, I'm with
like,
you.
I'm like, can you imagine, like, let's say the next From Software game comes out, Elden Ring 2 comes out, and it has a shop like an Assassin's Creed game, where it's like spend whatever X amount of dollars to get your flaming horse in your fire armor and stuff like that. People would go nuts. But with Ubisoft, they're just kind of like, meh, it's Ubisoft. To me, that makes it feel like low tier developer where people just don't even give a shit about you anymore. I don't know. It's weird.
I think
It's a weird thing.
in some ways, going back to my sorted out, Ubisoft has done that to themselves, that they have reduced their esteem in people's eyes from some of the things that they have done. Partly that's going to include things like making Assassin's Creed partially life service.
Yeah.
Right. We've seen that. And it doesn't bother me so much in experiencing Assassin's Creed for myself, but you do go to the guy in the marketplace who has the timed special currency missions. And you say, okay, Ubisoft, I get it. You want me to see the store. You want me to get some currency, but not enough to actually buy anything. I understand how this all works. It doesn't bother me because I can go and run across all of England and never finish Valhalla. But it can certainly make you feel like you aren't premium tier, right? Like you're not, like you're trying to sell yourself as the Michelin star restaurant, but you've got paper menus. I get that.
Yeah. All right. This is from Angel of Cake. Hello, Summoners. I'm issuing a sort out to everyone who thinks early access to a game is actually something that is a perk. Unless you're getting a sneak peek a couple months before release, then you're actually paying to be a beta tester. What's actually happening is the game is finished. The publisher is just delaying the game for everyone else. Stop falling for this crap and stop rewarding them. Have a great week, everyone. So, with early access, are they talking about getting like a week early access, or are they talking about like Steam early access?
I think this is the 5 days and the 2 days for the deluxe edition.
Yeah.
And yes, we're not great with the nomenclature on these things. So yes, early access where you're developing the game actively, I think is a different ball of wax. Right. And I will look at certain things like the developer's history of actually finishing a game and what the pricing difference might be before I invest in early access. I will tell you straight up, chances are I am not interested in buying your early access game. I agree with the overall concept of these games aren't finished. They aren't necessarily fun at the time. I'm not so terribly interested in working with the community to help develop your game. I do feel that some of that process is essentially something that I would be charging for in another context, providing you with questionnaires or support, figuring out where the fun lives. That to me is different than the conversation about 5 days and 2 days. This is a fight I get into with Travis at IGN over on the Bitcast a lot, who is adamant that this is an extortative behavior from publishers and developers to essentially charge you money for the actual release of the game and then have everybody else that can only afford the normal price essentially have to take the delayed version of the game. To me, it's clear that the customers are interested in buying that 2 days and that 5 days, depending on what game we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I'm reluctant to admonish it as much as folks like Travis do, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. But I certainly understand the concept of resentment that, just like we were talking about with respect to EA and Skate, these developers and publishers are just looking for every way to get their hand in your pocket. And in this particular case, if I can't afford the $100 version of the game, I don't want to feel like a second-class citizen because I can only play it on Thursday instead of Tuesday or whatever days we're talking about. So I get all aspects of this. I just am also inclined to say, if the people want to pay for that as a perk, are you better off if that 2 days early access or 5 days early access bullet point is just taken off and everybody gets it on the same day? Does that make your life better? I'm not sure that it does.
Right. You know, what's funny about this is that you're talking about your beta test theme for early access. What if I told you buying a game on release day for a lot of cases, or most cases, is the beta test also? So keep that in mind.
Smart. If we were smart, we would all buy the game a year from release, on sale for 75% off or whatever they're going to sell it for to us at that point in time. And we will get a year's worth of patches. We will have spent a lot less money, but we won't get to participate in these conversations close to release for these games.
Right.
And that's important to a lot of us. So yes, I always feel like I've been taken advantage of a little bit when I buy. Speaking of Ubisoft, right? We're talking about Ubisoft. They are the classic case of you will be able to buy Assassin's Creed Shadows at probably something like a 40% off clip.
Yeah.
A month or two after I buy Assassin's Creed Shadows. I told you I have it on pre-order. That's not because I'm a smart guy. It's because, one, I like to pre-order things because the downloads that happen automatically remind me when things are coming out. And it's always a fun little treat to see it just on the dashboard and look at the timer on my PlayStation and say, great, that's awesome. That's what I'm doing on Thursday. But that's not great use of finances. And a smarter version of me would buy things essentially 1 year after, and I would just constantly be living a year in the past. I wouldn't be great at these conversations, but that's where I would live.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like a great example of Ubisoft, Hoeg, is Star Wars Outlaws. It has changed quite a bit from launch. Quite a bit. They've done a lot. So,
I love Outlaws, but I love it even more after I think it was their 1.2 patch where they really sorted things out.
Yeah. So we're all beta testers day one. Some companies are better about it than others. Like Nintendo rarely does like huge changes like that. But I wonder when we'll get there with a Nintendo game. I wonder what the game will be. But they're just like, whoa, we got to fix this. All right. This is from Willie Wanker. Sorted out. Yeah, I know. Welcome to Summon Sign. Sorted out people who play a game for 100 plus hours in a week, then complain about the lack of content or a lack of content. Hunter. Yes, people complain about Monster Hunter Wilds lacking content or claiming the game is boring after 130 hours of playtime. Didn't this game just come out? People like this are the reason why games become bloated for no reason. If you spend 100 hours on a game and if you're tired of it, go play something else. There are plenty of games out there. Put Monster Hunter down until the content updates and play something else. Yeah, this was making the rounds. Someone said this about Monster Hunter Wilds. And I think there's some positive or some things I agree with kind of what the person who wrote it with. I'm like, sure, I could see some of the end game stuff not being up to snuff compared to past titles, but 130 hours and like, I think it was like a week and a half or something like that from the launch. It's like, it's fucking crazy amount of time.
We've gotten these stories in video games for a long time, right? I remember them coming with World of Warcraft and its expansions.
Yes.
Where you'd have people buzz through it and say, the developers didn't give us anything. It's like, well, if we look at what you actually spent on this and how many months it will take me to get to the place that you were, then I think the developers actually did give us something. On the other hand, when you get to the last paragraph of this conversation, they said, well, you should just go play something else. I totally understand the developer saying, well, that's fine, but we don't want you to.
Right.
And this is the line they have to walk with making a game approachable and interesting for someone that's not going to put 100 hours in week one. And then also keeping those people invested so that they do potentially buy the next game, buy the expansion, or in the case of games with microtransactions, stick around so that they get access to that store. This is like Diablo 4 to me. I love Diablo 4. I really have enjoyed all of my time with it. But you can see people fight about whether or not it's got enough endgame content, enough content in a given season. And I'm rarely, if ever, experiencing some of that content for myself at the time that it's initially released because I just don't have the capacity to play those games that much, / I'm always playing something else. Right? There's no point in my life in which Monster Hunter Wilds or Diablo 4 or Skull and Bones or anything else that I play on a live service basis is the only thing I'm playing for like a week on end. That's just not how I operate.
Yeah. Micah, any thoughts on this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a wild complaint. Like, I finished Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 in 3 weeks, and that's my fault. There's plenty to do, plenty to see. I'm just a maniac who said I want to see all of it as quickly as possible.
It's honestly
and
impressive.
I had a blast. But it's like, yeah, dude, that's my fault. Because I do know for a fact that when I was working a different job and I had, full-time work in the IT world, it did take me months to finish a game like Persona 5 or The Witcher 3 because I'd be playing for a couple hours per week. So for the average person, this is so much content to the point where half these games don't even get finished, even an initial playthrough. The power users of the world stand down because 100 plus hours of content is a lot of content. You can, as you said, Brad, you can absolutely debate the quality of the entire experience. Maybe the last 10 hours after the first 90 are a slog. But it's like, no, if you're talking about the amount of content available,
Right.
that's a fucking lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of content.
That is a lot of entertainment value for your dollar, you would think.
That's a lot.
But there are also people that'll say, I played 130 hours and then give it a downvote on Steam and say this was the worst thing ever. So I don't know.
Yeah,
those are my favorites, though. Can I just say some of my favorite, like, screenshots like that? It's like, horrible game. They played it for 600 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you really hated it.
You really hated it.
Yeah. It takes that much time to figure out how much you hate it.
Yeah.
Oh, Hoeg, just complete aside, if you ever want a good laugh, go read reviews for Crunchy Peanut Butter, because there are so many reviews where people are like, it's like they didn't finish it 1 star. And it's like they don't understand the concept that it's not supposed to be smooth. Like there was specifically from Target. I saw really all these reviews because I was like, why does this Crunchy Peanut Butter have such bad reviews? Did it change? And it was just all these people who don't know what Crunchy Peanut Butter is, and they're like, I got this and it's horrible. They didn't even grind it up.
I do like the subgenre of like ironic Amazon reviews. So
yes.
I do find myself reading those sometimes.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to more pleasant pastures, I suppose. With Keep It Up, stuff we're actually pleased with in gaming. Micah, let's start with you. Is there anything you're pleased with in gaming this week?
I am. So as a lot of people know, I love my visual novels. And while I show restraint, I don't buy as many of them as I could because I don't get to them in a very timely manner, but I'm like, I want them. But recently, a listener reached out to me and had said, do you have any recommendations? My wife would like to find a couple visual novels, and there's just so much crap out there. So it's like, what do you recommend? And as I'm making some of these recommendations and realizing there were so many physical releases for a lot of these games, and I own several like physical copies, but a lot of visual novels you used to never see a physical release. It would be digital only. And that's the realm where I'm cool buying it digitally because I'm like, yeah, this is kind of a niche thing. And I understand that this might not be worthy of a full release. But as I'm going down the list of games that I'm recommending to this person, I'm like, wow, a lot of these are still available physically at very reasonable prices. They're not $80 for the sake of it. Like they're actually still normal price, still able to buy. So shout out to whoever is publishing these visual novels as physical copies, because when it comes to things like giving a gift, it is always more fun to open something. And I am just like, cool beans, man, because when I was buying some of these a couple of years ago, I thought I'm getting these now, but I doubt they're going to keep doing this. And lo and behold, I go on Amazon and every time they recommend me a new visual novel and it's like, and it's a physical release. Ooh. Wow. So shout out to them.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, I just saw one of my favorite visual novels, Fata Morgana, is getting a physical release.
So I actually, oh, damn it, it's not in here. I moved all my games to the game room. I have the limited run copy of that for Vita. And it's one I actually have not gotten to yet because the list of visual novels, because I've been reading a lot of real books lately. So it's just one of those things of like, I'm reading and then I want to play a video game. Do I want to read the video game? Not really.
How I feel after work sometimes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I do have I don't know, several visual novels to get to, but I do own that one.
Nice. Highly recommended. Really good stuff. You gotta like kind of a gothic romance horror vibe.
Yes, that's the thing. As people know, I don't usually jive with horror, but when it comes to visual novels, I love horror in those. There's just something, I don't know, it's like there's a wall between you and what's happening.
Yeah. Because
it's part book, part choices. It just doesn't feel nearly as intense, of course, as playing something like Resident Evil or Fatal Frame. There is this barrier between you and the experience because you're acknowledging that it's a novel in some way. It's why I love reading Stephen King, because it honestly it doesn't scare me. Because I'm like, it's just a book, I can close it. Mm-hmm. Versus like a movie or something that is like being beamed into your eyes.
Yeah,
it is true. I will have to say though that I think Doki Doki Literature Club may have been one of my most scary video game experiences. So yeah, it can happen.
Absolutely.
That's funny. Cool. All right, Hoeg, what about you? Keep it up for you.
Yes, my keep it up is, speaking of visual novels, and perhaps to the surprise of some folks that don't know exactly what I play, is for an announcement that happened actually earlier today for a release date for one of my favorite visual novel / dating game video game series, which is Monster Prom. For those of you that don't know the Monster Prom series, you're essentially originally trying to date various monsters at a monster high school. That quickly advances to camp dating and then road tripping. And they announced Monster Prom 4 last year called Monster Con, where you're apparently going to be doing something at some kind of comic book convention with monsters. This is, bar none, the funniest video game series that has ever existed. It's all writing, it's all visual novel based, but it makes me laugh every single time. If you are in a bad mood, if you're looking to just kind of energize and feel a little bit better about yourself, about the world around you, I highly recommend this. Keep it up. I think it's Beautiful Glitch is the name of the company that makes these games. I am so excited that this series has been as successful for them as it has been, and that we're getting a 4th entry into this series. I have them all. It makes me laugh every time. Sometimes it's jokes that are inappropriate. Laughter comes with inappropriate jokes.
Yep.
And I could not recommend this series more. That is my keep it up.
Nice.
So excited for that release next month.
Yeah. All right. For me, since I just finished this, it's for Warhorse Studios. I just finished Kingdom Come 2. I did not play Kingdom Come 1, so I had no context there, but I played 2, and I absolutely adored these characters. I felt so much for them, and I felt like brothers in arms with so many of them, especially when I didn't even see them in the first game. I was just really impressed with this game, how in-depth it was, way more than I thought they would do, and how well, honestly, how good I would say the main quest was with the game and keeping things interesting the entire way throughout, where I was playing it and I was like, well, I could go do some side stuff, but I really want to see what's going on with this main quest. I gotta know kind of thing right now. So really great game. I had a ton of fun going through this game. It's jank in many ways still, but it's still really awesome. I'm really impressed with this studio. So now it's definitely a studio I'll be keeping an eye on in the future to see whatever future progress they got coming up. So well done, Warhorse Studios. You did great with Kingdom Come 2.
As I said, I'm nowhere near the end, but from what I've played so far, I think it's got the best writing since Witcher 3.
It's really good.
And you combine that with an immersive world like they've built, and it's one of the best games I've ever played.
Yeah, it's excellent. Excellent video game. All right, let's hear from the audience. This is from Bloviated Rendering. I want to send a cosmic keep it up to Lovecraftian games. Over the last month, not only did we see the announcements of the Mound, Omen of Cthulhu, and Cthulhu, the Cosmic Abyss. How many cosmic horror games have Cthulhu then? Probably every one, right?
You got to sell it.
Yeah, that's true. But we also saw the Sinking City 2 blow past its Kickstarter goal and set a 2025 release window. For someone like me who eats up the uniquely eerie tones of Lovecraft worlds, this is a dream come true. Outside of Bloodborne, do any of you have history with Lovecraftian-inspired horror? And do any of these new games speak to you? All hail our Cephalopold overlords. I don't know how to say that.
Cephalopod.
Cephalopod. Yeah, I have no idea how to say that.
Like the deep one, yes.
Yes, I'm not super familiar with all the cosmic horror stuff.
Okay, so first of all, one of my favorite games ever, and I'm sad that this is lost to time at this point, is Eternal Darkness on the GameCube.
I've played it for like 10 minutes and I was very interested in it. It's one of those horror games, Hoeg, that's like, I gotta play this thing. It's one of my like missing gems.
Really mild spoilers. It's very Lovecraftian.
Yes, I do know that.
And I highly recommend it. I do enjoy Lovecraftian horror. I really like existential dread and like the unknowable. I like movies that are made around that. One of my favorite board games of all time is called Eldritch Horror, which is an offshoot of Arkham Horror, which is all a board game based on Lovecraftian lore. I like The Sinking City. I really like Frogware's mystery games, but I didn't like it as much as their Sherlock Holmes takes. So I'm hopeful that Sinking City 2 will be closer to that than the first one was.
Yeah, Hoeg, I've never seen The Sinking City. I was kind of interested in it. Would you recommend it? Not bad? Okay.
Yeah, not bad is about as strong as I can give it, I think. Okay, I really do like their mystery-solving approach. They developed it with their Sherlock Holmes series. I really like, for instance, Sherlock Holmes. I think it's called Year One. I highly recommend that one. Sinking
Okay.
City tries to add a certain action elements to it that I don't think really work out so well for them. So a little less of a high recommendation than the Sherlock Holmes series, but solving mysteries in that framework that they've built for those games is, I think, some of the more fulfilling mystery solving that I've played in games, and I love solving mysteries in games. So
Yeah. Hey,
I'm glad to see them succeed.
I don't mind going through like a 6 out of 10 or something like that. Maybe impossible lower. I don't mind that every now
I
and
think
then.
6 is probably right.
Okay. Yeah. I'm fine with that. Cool. Micah, any Lovecraftian stuff you're a fan of video game wise?
I've never experienced anything Lovecraftian.
Okay.
No, I as you said, like you see Cthulhu everywhere.
Yeah.
So I've certainly heard of it, but I don't know anything about the actual source material or the things inspired by it. When I like horror type stuff for me that I primarily enjoy is like, dude, I love vampires. I like evil robots, right? I like ghosts. And then this is just a whole other wheelhouse that I have no experience with.
Okay. Play Bloodborne, Micah. There you go.
Bloodborne, too hard.
Yeah,
Too
I know, I'm just
hard,
kidding.
man.
That's never gonna happen.
Well, no, dude, like I was dead ass thinking of getting Elden Ring, like to finally try it out, but I'm just like, you just don't like frustration, do you? And it's like, I don't, like you just don't. And that's the game. That is the game. And I'm like, it's just, when that's like a feature of the experience is that it upsets you. It's not like controlled chaos. It's like, no, like this is going to be really, really difficult. Are you ready? And it's like, no, I spent my whole life avoiding difficult things for the most part. So
it's more than just difficulty, though. It's an adventure, Micah. It's an epic.
I've spent my life avoiding adventure. I mean,
know.
look at me, Brad. Like I didn't have a big dream to be a lawyer. I was like, nah, that sounds hard.
Giving me too much credit.
I need Nappa statues and Raditz statues in my life. That's what you're thinking.
That's all I need is a job to buy some anime figures, right?
Traps.
Like,
yeah.
This is all the adventure I need.
Yeah. Hey, you're playing Zelda now, though, so things have changed.
It has. I'm going to tell you, though, as you've noticed, like I've pumped the brakes on playing them.
You played a lot.
I did. I think I'm going to play Skyward Sword next.
Oh,
only the Switch version. No, but that's the thing is because if I don't finish it, I just kind of want to get out of the way. But like because then what do I have left? Majora's Mask and Skyward Sword. Is there any other ones
Wind Waker? Well, I'd really like to recommend Wind Waker to you, but Nintendo has to announce that they're bringing it over to one of the modern systems.
Wind Waker already because of Game Grumps.
Yeah. So no, that's one I'm waiting. If they bring it over to Switch 2, I will play it. In terms of what I have, I'm pretty sure that Majora's Mask and Skyward Sword are the last two that like I own. Yeah. And then like Nintendo Switch Online has the Oracle of Seasons game.
In ages, yeah.
Yeah, so I might check those out. I'm not sure if I'll be smart enough to play those. You went through
Minish Cap. Yeah, you'll be fine.
I got through it. Yeah,
you did get through it. So no Breath of the Wild though, or Tears of the Kingdom.
I don't think so.
Weapon durability is too much for you.
It's not even just that though. I just didn't love it. I mean,
you're a new woman now though.
The thing with like Tears of the Kingdom, like I mentioned on Punching Up, is I do think there's way too many cutscenes. Like I like they talk. It's just like it's Zelda. Mm-hmm. You're giving us so much exposition for what's essentially Ganon's back. Yeah, you don't have to reinvent a whole story for it. I know he's back. Let's just do the thing. Mm-hmm. It just was like
they do the thing.
It's too much
for how big that game is. I would say. For how much there's, and a lot of those cutscenes you can't avoid. But the start, of course, is going to be front loaded with cutscenes.
Exactly.
It's actually pretty funny. I was thinking there aren't a lot of cutscenes in Tears of the Kingdom, but I get what you're saying.
I mean, to be fair, I watched the Game Grumps play it. Yeah. So I was just like, oh God, another cutscene.
Where they explain things to you. So people.
Well, it's even just like, like later on in the game, and I'm just like, bro, if I have to hear about Mifa's grace, like one more fucking time, I'm gonna die, Oh, dude. For context, they do like surfer voices for the fish people, the Zora.
Yeah.
And so like it's really funny, but also I was just like, bro, he's talking so much now. so much. It's a lot.
All right. This is from Southish. What's up, fellow men and women of the dirt water sphere? Keep it up to upcoming studios. Lots of new projects and smaller studios are coming up recently, with Expedition 33 being on the stage soon.
Let's go.
What is everyone's updated perception of Expedition 33? We've had a 3-hour and 30-minute demo go out to media, and I have to say its inspiration from Final Fantasy and Atlas is worn on its sleeve, but in my opinion, they've made their own creative flair out of it successfully. Just like with any new studio, I have a few worries, but very happy for the people who worked on this and excited for its release. Side note, the world map looks dope. Have a good show. That is all.
I can't imagine being more excited about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. My desktop background right now is a melting Eiffel Tower. I've listened to the soundtrack a number of times. I've been on their founders list for months, and everything that comes out just continues to put a stamp on get excited about this release, people.
Yeah, I'll be playing it. Definitely day one. It looks great. So I will be there. You know me and Hoeg. We love those turn-based RPGs and stuff like that. So a new twist on it, we're absolutely down. What about you, though, Micah?
So I watched the trailer for it, and I was like, I'm going to wait and see how my friends feel about it.
Sure.
Because I thought it looked interesting, but I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to love this.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I was interested. I'm going to be waiting to hear how you guys feel about it. This was like the Avowed situation for me, where I'm like, yeah, that looks pretty cool, but I want to hear what, Gene and Maddie and Cog have to say about it. And then they kind of talked me out of it, right? So it was just, they talked me out of buying it at full price, I should say. I might still check it out sometime, but that's where we're at. So I am interested in this. I thought the trailer looked cool. But I want to hear what you guys think first. You guys who are really excited about it and are definitely going to buy it. And I'm like, cool, before I spend the money.
Yeah, it's bought. It is bought. It is ready to download at the middle of April. I am so excited about this release.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Colin will probably buy it, Micah, so you can see him play it, I guess.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's what's funny is sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's really cool, and I'll just watch him play the whole game and be like, well, that was nice.
Yeah.
And then I just don't play it.
Yeah, I could see that easily happening this time around. So
dude, that was Scarlet Nexus, which I was like, man, this looks awesome, and I just watched him play the whole thing.
Scarlet Nexus, cool game.
Yeah, underrated.
Yeah, I'm kind of annoyed we never got a new game, but whatever. All right, next on the list, Micah. Golden Sun. I wrote Golden for the notes for Dustin. Golden Sun. Talk to me. Golden Sun.
Yeah, so I did not end up finishing this game, and I'll get into the why. I did like it, though. I'll say first off, I liked this game. I liked what it was going for. I just had a couple of little gripes with it that are Micah problems.
Sure.
The basics. This game centers around a group of teens who are able to use synergy. I think that's how you'd pronounce it. It's spelled like psi energy in the game. And I'm like, I think you're going for synergy. I think it'd be clunky to say psi energy, but whatever.
Yeah.
And that's like the magic force in the world. It allows them to do various things like moving objects with their mind and, lifting things up to solve puzzles. Dispelling illusions. There's one of the magic users who is more of like a psychic based type of dude. So like he can dispel illusions in the world that have been placed. He can read minds. And it's also things like, oh, you see that vine over there? If you can use your powers to make that vine grow, then you can climb it to access a new area. So you're using your various powers to solve puzzles in the overworld and in the dungeons. You also have battle abilities as well. So each character has their own element that they are aligned with. And so you have your default powers like fire and water and whatnot. And those are used offensively. And then you also have, of course, healers. The story, with no spoilers, is that the elemental crystals have been stolen from the sanctuary and you're trying to get them back. All these great calamities have been taking place ever since they were stolen from the sanctuary. So you want to track down the thieves and return the stones to their rightful place. I'll say the little dialogue scenes in the game are really well done. Some of them are just too long, though, because you can't skip them, first of all. And they really went for it in terms of they insert like pauses, like for dramatic effect, but you're just watching these very small sprites on your screen stand still. And it's for dramatic effect that it's like a great pause, but it's like, just get on with it. Because it's not a voiced cutscene. You are just reading it. Sometimes you're like, did the game freeze? And then they'll start speaking again. It's like, okay. And so I understand what they're going for. It simply isn't very entertaining when you're reading it as it comes through, and it's like, just deliver the message. Short pause would have been fine. But sometimes they really go for the theatrics, and it's just a little annoying to sit and wait for the scene to play out when, visually speaking, it's not much to look at. The game, like the battle animations, excellent, like really great. But just the little dialogue scenes are just kind of boring, and you got to sit through them, especially if you want to know what's happening. But it's also just like, get these out of the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, the battles, really cool. As I said, each party member has their default element. What makes it even cooler is that the game has like a Pokemon type system where you collect these Jin, as they're called, and you have to battle them. They join you, and then you can assign those to various party members. Those may have a different element than you, though. So now the fire guy can cast different skills than he could before. And you can swap all these around and kind of optimize your party. And so that really adds a whole new layer to the battle, because the Jin themselves have different levels of abilities. They can give status buffs, and they can heal. They can do things like sometimes they'll heal like your whole party or just one party member, depending on like the strength of it. They might raise your attack, or they might raise your elemental attack so that the next turn, if you use your fire magic, it's way stronger. And so they just have different phases of usefulness. And so the way that they work is they have a base ability. You call on that first. And then you use their attack ability. That's the second phase. And it'll do like a special move. And then the third phase is like a full-on summoning of the Jin, and those are like really strong attacks. And as you do the elemental attacks, you build up elemental points. This is where it gets a little like Xenoblade Chronicles complicated. Not that complicated, but you do the elemental attacks, you build up points, and then with those points, you can spend it on a stronger summons later. The thing is, though, I never really built up enough points for like the strongest attack, because I would end up just being like, just show me something cool. And I would like call in a summons, even like one of the weaker ones. But it was fine. The battles weren't too difficult. So I didn't feel the need to bank up 4 points for the ultra attack. Maybe that's a slight flaw of the game, is that I never really got stumped in any battle to the point where I was like, I got to bank up all my points. It's like, just wasn't that difficult. Right. But the battles are cool. The animations are gorgeous. A lot of variety of enemies. Some of them a little silly. Some of them kind of like legitimately creepy looking, which was cool. And so I really enjoyed that. There's less of an emphasis, though, for a game that's based on elemental attacks. The enemies, while they might be stronger against an element, like they never like nullified it. So like the water enemy didn't completely nullify water attacks. He just wasn't as weak to them. So when it came to strategizing, it was honestly pretty easy, because it's not like you had to say, well, my water guy can't do anything except physical attacks. It's like, no, he can still do the water attacks. They're not as strong, but he doesn't nullify them or repel them back to you like other games might, with a higher difficulty. So the battles were a bit simplistic in that way, but that's not what I got bored with. What became a challenge for me was just figuring out what to do next. This is a game with very little player direction. You get all of your intel by going to a new town and talking to all the NPCs and figuring out from their little hints what to do next and where to go next. And it'll be very generalized directions of, there's a town to the south where something happened. And you're like, I got to walk out of here and go south. But the world map has like the random battles on it. So exploring is not really fun. So I did find online a map that I could reference. So it's like, okay, I'm going from here. It's actually southeast. So I'm not just wandering around like a jackass forever. But I got sick of that. I don't love games that don't tell you what to do. And that's where I don't jive really with old school games. And because I didn't really grow up with it, I just tell me what to do. You don't have to hold my hand the whole time. But it'd be great if you said, like, to the southeast is this town and you should go there, versus like a hint. Because even what I said before is like, it's way more vague than that, generally speaking. They'll be like, oh, I heard of a magic man somewhere in the south. And then you talk to someone else and they give you another hint and you got to piece them all together. And I just don't love that. I'm lazy when it comes to that part of gaming. The NPCs aren't very interesting. So aside from the fact that you have to glean all this information from them, it's just not very fun to do. And the town's vary in size. So like you go and you do all your shopping and that's really fun. And then it's like, geez, there's 20 people in here I got to talk to. And I just didn't love that part of it. And what really made me stop playing was I got to a section of the game that's essentially a boss dungeon. And I was just like, that picture of Chrissy Teigen where she's kind of like, I just didn't want to do it. I simply didn't. I just knew in my soul that I didn't want to do that boss dungeon. And according to the guide I was doing, I didn't have to do it yet. So I was like, all right, I'll put that off. And then I played some more and I got to the part where it's like, you got to do the boss dungeon now. And I just was like, I don't want to. And I also knew I was putting off gaming. And that's when I said, you have to stop playing it because you're just not having fun. I realized I was like, I didn't play the game for 2 days. And it's just because I don't want to play it. Yeah. I told myself I was busy. I told myself I was like, oh, I'm just in a mood to read right now. It's like, no, you just don't want to play it. You just don't want to play this fucking game. And you just have to stop. So I played, according to Nintendo Switch Online, I played for about 12 hours. And the game on How Long to Beat is rated around 20 hours long. 8 hours is too much at this point. Like I was telling myself, maybe you could power through it, but I'm like, 8 hours of a game I'm not loving. And that's 8 hours if I can get through all of it without having to grind levels, which I was not confident about. The last boss fight I did was really difficult. And I was using like the rewind feature because I, made some mistakes. I went back, but I said, you're going to have to grind levels. There's no way that you're going to get through this. Like the recommended level for the boss dungeon was probably 10 levels higher than where I was at. And the thought of grinding levels in that game made me want to cry. So as much as I liked what it was doing and its intentions, I just wasn't having enough fun with it. But I'm really glad I tried it because it was cool. And the battle system was excellent. The animations were really, really cool. And if you have Nintendo Switch Online, I recommend checking this out. But at the end of the day, it's not really my wheelhouse to play these games that give you so little direction. And I just was so over it. Like, I hate having to check the guide because I couldn't figure out what to do next. And so I go to the guide and it's like, you gotta go find this cave. And it's like, that cave is like on the other side of the world. Like, we just came from there. The back and forth was part of it. There's no fast travel or nothing. At least in the section of how far I got. If there's fast travel later, forgive me. But it's like, you gotta walk all the way back to that cave. And I'm like, fuck. And the random battles the whole time. I don't love random battles. It's not the end of the world to have random encounters, but I don't love it. Yeah. And I will say, though, one super cool thing that the game does, they limit the random encounters when you are puzzle solving. There are a couple sections of kind of larger scale puzzles for you to solve, and they're not crazy difficult or anything. And I really enjoyed the puzzles. I thought they were very well done, but they shut off random encounters during that. That was super cool. Felt very modern, actually, because I was like, Thank you. Because there's nothing I hate more than working on a puzzle and the enemies keep popping up and you get turned around. It's like, what direction was I facing when this battle started? Which way was I going? What did I just do? And I hate that stuff. So that was a super like A+ to this game for saying this little puzzle area, no enemies. I loved that about it. I definitely recommend it. Like, I highly recommend this game. I just am not loving how much I need the guide because it's mind numbing to me to have to go through a series of tasks like from what the guide's telling you to do. I don't know why that's different than the game telling you what to do, but maybe it's just because it's breaking the immersion of I have to keep going to the laptop, back to the game. Maybe it's the back and forth that really is what's bothering me. But I do still recommend it. I had fun with it. Yeah. I'm simply just cannot stomach 8 more hours of it.
Yeah, you've had enough. And you gave it a fair shake. 12 hours? Psh.
It's funny. Yeah. I think I had the same experience with Golden Sun when it first came out. I know this is a beloved game for some people, but I loved playing this game on, I think it was the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was a jaw dropper on that game, on that system. Like, you couldn't believe that these graphics were on that portable system that you were playing on. I remember loving how it looked. I remember it reminding me of the art style of a game I really loved from the old Sega days called Shining in the Darkness. It has that same kind of very colorful vibe that I really loved. But it didn't hold me enough. It didn't tell me a good enough story or one that I was interested enough in pursuing to the end. And so I dropped it somewhere in the middle. I don't know how far that was, but I know that I've never finished it. I know that when it came out on the online service, I was interested in approaching it again, but it's really not built for your TV, honestly, and that's where I play most of my Switch games, and I just wasn't enjoying it when I tried it again. So your playthrough experience matches much my own, and I certainly sympathize with random encounters, confusing puzzle solving. I would add that even to just environmental traversal puzzle solving, like a dungeon with 3 different paths or whatever you're trying to solve at the time. I will absolutely have it be random encounter. No problem. I'll take it out in Octopath Traveler or whatever. And then I'll be like, I don't even remember that I was on this screen. What was I looking at?
That is exactly how I feel, because they do still have random encounters within the dungeon. And I had so many moments where I was like, I think that's the door I came out of. So I'll go to this one. And then I went through the door that I came out of. I'm like, crap. And then you got to go back. Another random encounter starts. At least in that case, I would shamelessly use the rewind function because I was like, no. I'm going back to that last battle. And so I'm going to walk the correct direction. But you're right, Rick, because as I said with the story, the elemental crystals have been stolen and you got to find them. It's not a lot to work with. I respect it because it's a really well done battle system in this Game Boy Advance game, but the story is just like 4 teens on a mission to find some magic stones, and they don't give you much else to work with. There are some cool little sub stories, but just barely. Like, they will literally be like 1 to 2 tasks, and that's the whole sub story, and then it's like, all right. And there's like a little bit of a mystery kind of built in, but they drip feed it so slowly that you lose any sense of urgency of wanting to figure out like where that mystery goes, because you're just like, I guess we'll get another clue in about 3 hours.
Yeah. It's just, and I'm a guy that loves visiting towns and talking to everybody and getting all their nonsense about cats and trees, and then maybe somebody saying there's a tower that you might want to check out somewhere over there. I like that. That's how I grew up, was on Final Fantasy, where you're also looking for some stolen stones or crystals in that case, or Dungeon Quest or Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior at the time. But I just didn't think this one was as compelling as some of the bigger entries, which isn't a surprise for a portable system game, but it was trying to kind of walk the line between being a full console experience and available on your Game Boy. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's connected with so many people, and that you still hear references to Golden Sun and its sequel so often, is because it is striking visually. It is an experience that you really couldn't get on your portable system in so many ways when those games came out. But I don't think it holds up terribly well against other things you could be spending your time on, either on the Switch or elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, Rick, I'm so glad you're here for these comparisons because no, that's exactly how I feel. Like when I talk about the dialogue scenes, it's like they want to replicate a full console experience, but it is a Game Boy Advance, so you're not getting like actual cutscenes. You're just getting dialogue boxes popping up one at a time, and the cadence was just wrong for that presentation. It would have worked if it was voiced, and I actually could like, okay, what's he gonna say next? But when you're just waiting for a dialogue box to pop up, it's like, let's go, all right? Like we're waiting in line here. I'm over it. And it's like a very ambitious project here, but it doesn't necessarily mean I enjoyed playing it. I'm so glad you're here because I feel better now because I was like, man, you just suck at old games. You know, you just don't have it. But if Rick tells me it's okay, then I feel better.
You certainly shouldn't judge your own worth on what I think, but I did not connect with Golden Sun as much as some other people did. I know that.
Yeah, because it's actually one of Colin's favorite games. He was really excited for me to try it because he said he actually got in trouble playing it in class when he was in high school. You know, brought his Game Boy to school and he got caught playing it. And I feel like I am super glad that I was able to talk to him about it. You know, there's not a lot of overlap for us in our gaming interests. Like there are just so many things that he plays that I don't want to play and vice versa. So it was great to connect on this. I think that's part of why I hoped I would like it even more.
Sure.
But this is going to be one where what am I saying? I was going to be like, I'll Google the ending and see what happens. I'm pretty sure I can guess. Right? I'm pretty sure I can guess what happens.
Well, what's funny about that is there are lots of very simple tropey stories in JRPGs that can still do a lot. There are games that I love, that I adore, that are in my personal kind of pantheon. Even ones that are remastered this month and next in Suikoden and Lunar that are relatively simple in approach, but then kind of become grander, do bigger things, become crazier than you're expecting just from the tropes that they set out at the front. I didn't get that experience with Golden Sun. As you suggest, it might change towards the end. I don't know how far I got. I think it's probably similar to where you're at, about a dozen hours. But it just doesn't have enough driving you at that moment in time to make you see whatever cool things they might have at the end. There's just no reason to believe that they're there. And I have that problem with a lot of games. Especially recently, I've thought a lot of introductions and beginnings of games in particular have really struggled to make you want to play the rest of them. I have said a couple of times on this video that I love Star Wars Outlaws. I know that's not shared with everybody. I really do, but I thought it had one of the worst kind of introduction, onboarding beginnings that I've ever played in one of these games. Some of that's been corrected, not all of it. And I still think that there is just great stuff in that game that so many people aren't going to get to see because it gives such a bad first impression, or at least it used to. That might be corrected a little bit more now. I can't really judge for myself there because I know what it used to feel like. So yeah, I think that's a problem for all sorts of games. I think that's a problem for all sorts of media, honestly. We can talk about streaming TV shows having slowness in them because they need to stretch out seasons. But I think Golden Sun has great art, and I wish it were more compelling of a story to play through in the times that I have tried to play it.
Yeah, that's extremely important because even in the intro, like one of your first tasks, they're like, go to your friend's house. But they actually don't even say, like, he lives to the south of you. Like, they give you no hint. They're like, you should know where his house is. And it's a tactic to get you to walk through the entire town and go into every house and talk to everybody till you find this guy. But I was just like, from the jump, I was like, oh, I don't love that. I don't love that you're like, go to his house and I don't even, it's like, I just go fucking find it. Because in reality, yeah, I should know where his house is, but I'm not actually this dude who I named Fartle. I'm not actually Fartle. I don't actually know where Garrett's house is. Like, can you just give me a hint? Yeah. And it's like, no hints. Go knock on every door till you find him.
At least you're knocking. In JRPGs, I'm usually just waltzing into people's bedrooms and breaking their pots.
That's true.
Dude, isn't that like the best part of Kingdom Come Deliverance is that like the urge to just walk into people's homes? They're like, what are you doing in here? And you're like, oh, sorry. Like the urge to just barge. Just barging in.
But then you back out and you walk back in. They're like, oh, welcome. It's like,
exactly.
Exactly. And then you pickpocket them.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're a nicer person than me.
Yeah, man, no. When I finally got good at the stealth, I was a very bad Henry. Like once I actually had some ability of like, okay, I can do this, I was
I stole
even all over the
everything.
place.
I think at least some of the balance is assuming that you're going to be a bad Henry.
Yeah. Feels like it. Cool. Golden Sun, I actually have the cartridge and I've been meaning to play. I've never played it. And I was kind of annoyed because I bought it. Then they're like, oh, it's on Nintendo Switch Online now. I was like, damn it.
You got me again, Nintendo.
Yeah, you got me. But
I'll say though, like the thing about the online version is the rewinds do just save you some of the clunkiness. Because, for example, I loved playing Fire Emblem: The Blazing Blade on Nintendo Switch Online. They don't have the subsequent titles available, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll actually try and buy these for Game Boy. Besides the fact that they're so expensive, though, I was like, this game was really hard. And I used the rewind shamelessly just to be like, because I'm remembering the game was difficult, but they lied to you. All right. They'd be like, you have a 90% chance to hit this guy, and you would do it and it'd be like miss. And I'm like, that's fucking bullshit, dude. I know technically that's how odds work. But like, I'm making decisions based on the numbers and you're fucking me here, dude. Like, and then it'd be like, they have a 40% chance to hit you. Critical hit. I'm like, what? So the game to me was unfairly difficult. And I was like, Rewind City. And then I said, you know what? If you buy these on original Game Boy, you're not going to finish them because you're going to get so frustrated by the fact the numbers don't actually matter. And you just play with your heart, basically.
Yeah.
I love that comment because it's such the classic discussion that like XCOM players have when it's 95% to hit and you feel it in your soul that it's unjust when that misses. And it's like, yeah, okay, I understand the random number generator could have found that 5%, but you're killing me, game.
Yeah.
And the game design is trying to work around bad dice rolls essentially, but it does feel unfair.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Split Fiction. I played a couple hours of this, and I really enjoyed it. But Hoeg, you've played a lot. But before you talk about it, this is from 441 Zook. Hello, everyone. Hoeg, I was a fan of It Takes Two, especially playing with my wife. How does Split Fiction compare? Is the co-op just as good? Can't wait to bicker with my spouse in a new game.
Yes. So I know that we have been a little bit underselling some of the games we've talked about today. I would have loved to come here and tell you Wanderstop is the best thing since sliced bread, but I can tell you that about Split Fiction. I am so excited to talk about this game. It's one of the reasons I wanted to be on this show today.
Yeah.
I love what Hazelight has done with their games. It's such fun for me to see them evolve through A Way Out and It Takes Two to this Split Fiction, which feels right now to be their pinnacle, but like that Simpsons meme, I think it's just their pinnacle so far. They are so good at what they're doing right now, and I'm so excited about talking about it with you. For those that don't know, Split Fiction is essentially best described as an action platformer. It experiences gameplay in both 3 dimensions and 2 dimensions. It kind of plays with your expectations, but the primary value of this game, I would say, is surprise and delight. You hear that phrase a lot for a lot of different games. If you're thinking in this vein, you want to think about like Astrobot and getting a new gadget in every level and having something new to explore, but even more different ideas, different explorations of those kinds of things than that game, which of course won Game of the Year last year at the Game Awards. Surprise and delight does mean, however, that I don't really want to dive too deeply into basically anything that this game does other than be an action platformer. So if you have absolutely no desire to action platform, I probably can't recommend it. But for everybody else on this planet Earth, I 100% recommend this game. To the commenter asking the question about It Takes Two, I think this is a better, more focused project from Hazelight than It Takes Two. I think it's vastly better in terms of storytelling and writing, which is not necessarily what you're coming to this project for. But It Takes Two had one of my least favorite characters in the history of video games in the Book of Love. So I really hated the Book of Love. If you love the Book of Love, if you voice acted the Book of Love and you're watching this video, I'm very sorry about that. I really hated this character. There is no Book of Love in Split Fiction. And this is not a bickering, almost divorcing couple in this particular game. These are 2 different writers that have been put into a virtual reality simulation. And part of what I love about this game from a writing perspective is the themes. If you followed me at all, you know that one of my favorite kind of themes in storytelling is on the nature of storytelling. I keep wanting to bring this up in Constellation at some level to talk about the nature of stories, why they're important, where they come from. I've talked at length about Alan Wake 2 and my love of that, Alan Wake 1, Immortality, all games and stories that are deeply invested in getting better understanding of where stories come from, how people's lives impact the creation and creativity process that they're engaged with. All of that is in this game. That is not why you come to the party. It is not a Final Fantasy in terms of storytelling. I'm not going to tell you that it is, but even though it's simple, even though it's kind of tropey and focused, it does what it's aimed at well, which I always give more credit for than going out and just trying to be grand without any specific purpose. So this game tells a good story with good characters. It has great gameplay. It controls well. I really want to compare it most to Astrobot there because that's a game that feels impeccable when you're playing it. It has a bunch of new ideas every level. You're always surprised and delighted. You're always interested in what's coming next. This game does that in spades. It's even more than Astrobot's experience, in my opinion. And while you're going through all those things, there's a lot of indie developers and a lot of indie gameplay that will try different things. I love playing indies for that purpose, but they maybe feel a little bit clunky. They don't get that full level of polish design. That's not a problem. You can work through that with those games. This doesn't have that. There's no friction point in terms of clunkiness here. Everything works exactly how you'd expect it to work. It feels great to play. It performs really well. I played it on the PlayStation 5. Its graphics are, I would say, nice. There's nothing really spectacular about them in any given way, but they perform well. There's no technical issues, and they look nice. They have really good art direction for both the science fiction and the fantasy elements. So you kind of feel like you're getting to play two games at once, which is obviously part of the premise of the game. That really works well. I will say as a downside, for those of you that don't know, like It Takes Two, this is a 2-player only experience, not 3, not 4, not 1. So if there's any barrier to entry on this game, it is that if you really enjoy it like I did, and you're thinking at 2 a.m, man, I could really go for some split fiction right now, you're probably not going to wake up your wife or daughter to play with you. And so split fiction will be foreclosed to you at that point in time. So that is a barrier for me, who does regularly have people that are willing to play video games and want to play video games with him. It's even a bigger barrier for those that don't have that opportunity. So for folks that say, can you play this one player? No, you can't. Are there good opportunities to play it without another player in the room? Probably not. You have to get someone else with a copy of the game. And yes, they give you 2 copies essentially when you buy a copy that you can give out, but you need to connect directly. There's not kind of an online server feature for this game. You don't want that. You really don't want to be playing with the equivalent of a pickup group here, because the other aspect of this game, like It Takes Two, is that it requires a high level of coordination. Almost everything that you are playing through is going to require a certain amount of success, agility-wise, in playing video games from both people at the same time. Now, not entirely. One of the things that's great about this game, as it was in It Takes Two, is that it really only kills you if both of you die at the same time. So one of the things that my daughter and I were having some success with was essentially alternating our deaths. Fighting a boss and saying, I'm not going to focus on shooting, I'm just going to focus on staying alive, so you go and you can die. If you die, we'll be fine. And I'm going to learn these patterns to jump around, and then alternating with the other player. You can do those kinds of things. And even though it's a little bit harder than It Takes Two, it is very generous with checkpoints. So you really don't feel like you're losing progress, even if you die a bunch of times. Now, you do have to have a certain amount of patience, maybe not from soft level patience, but you are going to die in a number of these particular scenarios a few times. And I was very grateful that even where I thought my daughter might say, enough of this, she didn't. And she was like, just get it together, Dad. And I felt bad because I'm at that place in my life where my kids are better at video games than me. And so I would be constantly apologizing for that particular boss death or what have you. And there are tons and tons of bosses in this game, all of which have different kind of modes of the best kind that you can think of in like the Super Nintendo era, where you've got just bosses changing up entirely what they're doing and doing something completely different and new. And you having to come to grips with that and probably dying in the process, all of which is a great experience. It's about 15 hours or so. So we talked about a 6-hour game being doable. This one is, to me, feels very doable as well. You don't think that you're going to have lots of big, long sessions of 2-player gaming, at least not in my house. And so 15 hours led to maybe 5 significant sessions of gaming for us. And we had a lot of fun doing it, all with a reasonable narrative that hangs everything together. So for my money, Split Fiction, one of my favorite games ever, maybe pound for pound, the best game ever made. Great at gameplay, great at graphics, reasonable story, love it to death. Can't wait to see what Hazelight does next. If It Takes Two was Game of the Year and Astrobot was Game of the Year, this is the kind of game that should be Game of the Year. Now, the field matters in that kind of discussion, right? And Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, also a generational type game. So I don't know where this year's going. I'm super excited for Expedition 33. There's a lot of good stuff coming out this year. But Split Fiction may wind up in my top slot for my favorite gaming experience ever.
Damn. Okay, that's the highest praise possible from Hoeg right there. Good Lord.
I could not speak highly enough about this.
Okay, very nice, Hoeg. Yeah, I would like to get back to it someday. With me and Gene played a couple hours, and we had a lot of fun playing it. But like you said, coordination sometimes. Coordinating with another player, especially when they're not in your house. Yeah, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah, that's a trek, and you don't really want to drop people in and out of this.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, very nice, Hoeg. Good sell. All right, guys. For me, just kind of quickly, I finished Pokemon Y, so I have gone through Gen 2 through 6 now recently.
Nice. Continuing
my journey. Next up is Ultra Sun and Moon, so I'm getting kind of close to being caught up. Still got like 3 or so more to go. But I enjoyed this game. I thought it was really fun. I liked, just for people, if you've played Pokemon games, you may be aware, there's always like a big bad organization in these games. First one's always like, first 2 were Team Rocket pretty much. Then you had Team Magma and Liquid, stuff like that. This one was called Team Flare, and they looked ridiculous. They wore like red suits and everything like that with like fire hair. But I thought their mission, their goal was very funny in the sense that they kind of just wanted to make everyone else unhappy except them. And it turned into the story going ways I didn't expect, like essentially nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction in a Pokemon game. I was like, what is happening in this stuff? And that tall guy, Micah, that you said was kind of hot in the ZA trailer, a little bit about him, a little context about him. So that was cool. What's interesting about this game, it was like the first fully 3D one, I think, at the time, because usually they had a little sprite works in them. I love the sprite works of the old games, but I think they did a pretty good job of taking this to fully 3D. This was on 3DS as well, and I had a good time. It's very, it's very Pokemon. They make small changes through new games, so it's not like usually, especially at this time, not like dramatic differences, I would say, but it's still solid. I had fun going through it. Really nice music. The location, like the setting and like the regions based on like France or something like that. So everything looked very French. Like there's a huge city you go to, which is the city in ZA coming out. And there's like pretty much the Eiffel Tower there and everything like that. So it was cool getting to go through the city. Pretty ambitious going through that city, I would say, for the hardware. It seemed really impressive. Like at this time in the Game Freak's life cycle, I'm like, yeah, they're pushing Pokemon still. It's later on, everyone tells me it drops off, and I kind of agree with that from what I've played of some of the other games. But right now, Game Freak was still cooking. They were still ambitious. And I had a good time overall. And I like these games because they always take me like 20 hours. They're RPGs, they are longer games, but they're not like super long, especially. And there's always a decent amount, not always, but there's always some post-game content, catching legendaries and all that stuff. I had a fun roster this time around. Had this awesome dinosaur named Tyrannotrum that was with me, like a giant T-Rex. He was sick. He was one of my favorites that was introduced in this gen. So I had a good time. Looking forward to going to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Later on, I'm going to take a little bit of break, though, to play some other stuff because there's a million games to play right now. But
that there is.
I got it right in from the Uncharted Wolf here. What's up, Summoners? Brad, with you playing through all the Pokemon games, what would you say is your favorite Pokemon from each game is? Have you also considered doing a podcast episode on the series with some Pokemon experts to talk about all the games in depth? Thanks for all you guys do. No, I have not, because compared to Pokemon people, like experts, I know nothing. I still have trouble remembering a lot of these Pokemon names. There's just so damn many of them. So I'm not an expert, but maybe I could talk to someone about this. There's a couple of people I know who are very knowledgeable about Pokemon. But anyways, I wrote down my favorites from each gen, and these could change every now and then, some of these. But Gen 1, of course, Blastoise, my number one. He's my number one Pokemon of all time. Him and Snorlax are my tops. I love that boy. Gen 2, Quagsire. Just a goofy little idiot Pokemon I love. What are you shaking your head for, Micah?
I've never heard of some of these,
Google
and they're
Quagsire.
crazy.
Yeah, I
I
just
don't
love
want
these
to
names.
Google it.
Google Quagsire, I dare you.
I'm doing it.
Do
He's
it.
I'm going to
cute.
pull up spicy Quagsire content.
No, don't do that.
I just don't want. No, I don't mean that. I just don't want this in my history. Looking up Pokemons now, like
Oh, man. Yeah, nothing more perverted than looking up a Pokemon. A
the
child's
Brad stink is rubbing off on me.
That's right. That's right.
Look, Quagsire is just a happy boy. There.
Yeah,
Look
I
at
just
that.
I
he
mean,
just
this
looking
is
at it makes me
Ditto.
laugh.
This is
He looks
Ditto
like-
with form.
Yeah, Ditto with form. Yeah, and a more evolved Ditto, I'd say. He's just a goofy little I don't know what he is, like a platypus kind of thing or something. He's awesome. Then we have Gen 3 is Slacking. He's like a giant sloth almost, like a gorilla sloth. I always love the big boy Pokemon. He lays down. He's very funny. Gen 4, kind of my least favorite, I would say, when I was looking at all of them. But then I picked Luxray. It's kind of like this electric dog cat thing. I don't know what it is. Gen 5 is interesting because I picked Cofagrigus. He's like a giant. He looks like a sarcophagus that like a pharaoh lies in. And he's like ghost Pokemon. He has like giant hands that come out. He's really cool. And Gen 6 is, of course, Tyrannodrum. Awesome T-Rex guy. Big fan of him. He's one of my all-time favorites now. So, but Hoeg, I know Micah hates Pokemon. What about you?
I definitely don't hate Pokemon, but like you, I am certainly no expert. I don't even think I could put the generational entries in order. Like they all blend together with the way that they sold these games for me.
It's easy for them to blend together, yeah.
I know Red and Blue. I know like Sun and Moon is Alola, right?
Yes.
Like, those are the ones that I can remember in my head.
Yeah.
But I really don't have a great feel for where you're at, what's happening in the stories of each individual game, and certainly not when each 100 or so Pokemon get introduced.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because throughout all these games, you always have like quote unquote rivals, I would say. And in like Red and Blue, the rival was like a real dickhead. And I really liked that because he felt like a real jerk. But like later on, these rivals are just like kids and they're like not even antagonistic to you at all. They're like your friend.
You're just the jerk.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, man. Like, give me a rival that's like, I want to beat. Like, at this point, I'm just like, they're just like a fly that won't go away and they just keep bothering me. That's what they feel like. I need a real dickhead rival again. They need to bring that back.
Well, one of my daughters really loves Pokemon, so I've seen a lot of, especially Arceus and Scarlet. And it's nice to see that. It's nice to see the next generation pick up some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But like her favorite Pokemon are all Pokemons that are converted foods. Like she really loves a Pokemon that I'm gonna not get the name right. It's like a cream.
Alcremie?
Alcremie, yeah, something like that.
I don't think that's right.
Or is it the ice cream one?
No, it's like a floating milk drop.
Oh, I don't even know that one.
Alcremie looks like
that's a pile of whipped cream.
Yeah,
basically.
Alcremie looks like a strawberry shortcake character.
Yeah.
That comes up for cream Pokemon search. So there you go, Google. You can judge me now.
I just typed cream Pokemon.
There you go.
It's just the Alcremie.
See,
all right, what about milk Pokemon?
Milk Pokemon. No, now there's Japanese milks being sold to me.
Oh, Milcery?
Milcery, that's it.
I hate this.
Oh, yeah.
I hate this so much.
Yeah, this is just like it's just milk.
It's like a jellyfish of milk.
It's her favorite. I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't know what its appearance or personality is in the cartoon, perhaps. But this is her favorite. Absolutely.
It's got a cute little smile. I'll give it that.
And it's from Sword and Shield, apparently, which I did watch her play.
Okay, I was trying to see what type it is. Maybe it's a ghost or something. Oh, it's fairy. Okay. Oh, it turns into the whipped cream one. It turns into Alcremie.
Oh.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So
I hate that. It's like, it evolves into this, and it's just.
Well, I very much appreciate the research help.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that I've asked this question before. She's a Milcery stan.
Okay. Milcery stan. Okay. Now we know. All right, dude. But she doesn't like Alcremie? Alcremie's kind of cool, I guess.
I don't know. I could ask her, and she might say, oh, yeah, obviously, Dad. But this has only ever come up with Milcery.
Okay. Milcery. Yeah. I don't know about that.
Oh, okay, dude. I'm on like the Pokemon like Wikipedia, and like just the description of this, it just says it has a droplet shaped body with 2 arms and a crown of 6 protrusions. I hate that. I hate that they're calling it that. Like it's Milcery is born from sweet smelling particles in the air. It absorbs the sweet aroma. Its body begins to swell. And that's how it turns into what it is.
Yes.
Dude, like you have a nice smell in the air and like a Pokemon just appears.
It's just the way their world works.
That's the way it works. Yeah, Micah. Have you seen Klefki, Micah? It's literally a key ring with a bunch of keys on it.
Oh, I think I hate this so much, Brad. And I'm going to play the one. God, it's just a key ring.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to play the one that our gracious listener sent me. But I don't know.
Right? They sent you Moon?
How are you doing this, Brad? How are you doing this? How are you playing them all in a row?
I embrace the chaos and understand.
But like, you're not burnt out at all?
Well, I'm going to play. I play stuff in between it. It's not like it's the only thing I'm playing.
Brad, you've been playing these like such a clip, man. It's like if I was like, I'm going to play Yakuza 0 through 8 in 1 year. Like
that
you're just
more time.
Yeah. I did play many Yakuzas back to back, so.
Dude, like I have separated the Xenoblade Chronicles games to 1 per year, period.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot of anime nonsense. So
it is. But even so, Brad, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how you're doing it.
Yeah, but 1 Xenoblade Chronicles, Micah, is like 5 Pokemon.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. I guess I am the type of person who, when it comes to a general theme, I can get burnt out, even if it's like a shorter experience. Like, for example, this is the Police 2. I don't want to jump right into that. I'm like, let me play a couple games in between. I don't have what it takes, whatever Brad's got, to be like, yeah, let me just play the same type of game very shortly after. Except in Kingdom Come Deliverance. I played the first one, and then the second one came out the following month, and I was like, hell yeah, dog, and I jumped right in.
Yeah, I was about to bring
that up. That game was magic.
Nice try, Micah.
That game was magical, Brad. Like, I wanted to be a peasant so bad. I was loving it. Dude, I was stealing lentil mash. And I
just see Micah walking around the house, going to a trough of water and washing herself.
Yeah. She calls her Switch a horse or whatever. Give me a fresh horse.
I did, because I had my new Switch Lite and my OG Switch, and I'd be like, bring me a fresh horse, and I'd go charge one of them and then play on the other. And Colin was like, what the hell are you playing this so much for? And he'd be like, what's Henry up to? And I'd be like, oh, and I'd rattle off all the things I've done. He's like, cool.
Yeah, I don't want to hear like bizarre, like Micah can't understand how I'm doing something gaming when she's playing all these games on Switch, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 on Switch.
Dude, that was the entry point, though, that made the game feel accessible. Because of that game, I bought a handheld compatible with my Xbox. Okay, yeah. I wasn't gonna wait for Kingdom Come 2 to come out on Switch and play the worst possible version of it. Okay,
ignorance is bliss. In that case, for Micah.
I straight up didn't know Kingdom Come was on Switch.
Yes,
it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. It did work. I'll say that it did work, but God, it looked so bad. Like looking back at the experience, it's like I can't believe I looked at this for almost 50 hours because it is just horrendously ugly, and
Yeah.
the character models are trash. But it got me into the series, Brad. How can I fault it for that?
I don't know. You're just playing the worst version possible of like everything.
I was gonna get Skyrim for Switch because I've never played it, but I actually hear that's pretty good. And I'm like, all right, that is a 360 game, so the Switch should be able to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. There's some Zelda content in that. They added Breath of the Wild stuff, outfits.
I did see that.
They look horrible, but it's very funny. I support it. All right, guys, let's end the show with some more comments from the audience. If you guys want to send in an inquiry to the show or write in, I post a thread every Saturday calling for your submissions on our Patreon, so keep an eye out there. Okay, this is from Ludwig. Hey, Summoners, what games are at the top of your guys' want to replay list? Games you've wanted to replay for a long time but cannot find the time for. Personally, I've been waiting to do a replay of The Witcher 3 for a long time now. It's one of my favorite games ever, but I haven't touched it in about 5 years or so. Best regards, Ludwig. All right, Hoeg, what's on your must-replay list?
I think right now I probably want to play Final Fantasy 16 again. And I haven't been able to do that in a while.
Nice. Yeah, it's a long game. Pretty long. Not as long as some other RPGs, but yeah. Do you want to play the PS5 version or the PC version now?
PS5. I think what's interesting about certain games is that I want to play for all the highlights, and then I don't want to play for all the things that maybe I have scrubbed from my memory of randomly picking up dirt in farms and other side quest content in that game. I like Final Fantasy 16 a lot, but there's certainly much to be desired about some of the side content in that game. So I think that's part of what blocks me. The other part that blocks me, of course, is that it's just a ridiculous time for game releases. And like I'm already behind on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. When Micah sent that message saying, when are we going to be ready for a spoiler cast? And I'm like, never. I feel bad.
Yeah,
There's a new Assassin's Creed coming out this week.
Beat that so fast.
Xenoblade Chronicles X is back. I mean, where's the time?
There is no time, unfortunately. Got to make cuts. I'm okay with that now. Some stuff just ain't getting played, and that's the way it is. Micah, what about you? Is there anything on your list that you'd want to replay?
For me, it's less about the time and more about, and this is like, I'm not saying this like as a brag or anything. Like, I have a good enough memory that I find replaying games almost painful because it's like, Micah, I don't want to. No, I don't want to skip all.
Smart. We know you got such a great memory.
I'm not smart. I just have good recall. But because like, for example, Colin played the first like 6 hours of Tales of Arise and then dropped it like when the game came out. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to start it over. And he did. Then he still didn't like it. And he dropped it again. And then he replayed it like a third time. But I was like, God. I would have. And he did finish it that time. But I was like, I don't have the wherewithal to replay the intro several hours of a game that many times. I would have simply picked it up from where I left off. It's actually what I did with like Borderlands 3. I dropped that game like, let me check my notes here. I dropped that game probably 2 years ago. Yeah, I started it in 2023. I finished it this year. I just picked up where I left off. I was like, there's no way I'm replaying 15 hours of what I already did. Whatever's happening.
I do find sometimes I build a barrier up for myself accidentally by like trying to play a game once for a reasonable amount of time, 8 hours or more, dropping off for whatever reason. Something shinier came out, something happened in my life, who knows why. Starting again a year later, doing that same 8 hours, maybe dropping off again for a different reason. And then you do that enough times and you're like, okay, I can't just pick it up because everything's not as easy to pick up as a Borderlands game. And certainly older games that don't have things like diaries or logbooks, it's like I can't just pop back into a role-playing game and be like, what is even happening here? And you say, all right, I don't want to pick it up from where I left off, but I don't want to play that first 8 hours again. And it just winds up in this limbo where it's like, I remember liking that first little bit, but I can't get back into that place again. And that's a space where I think like YouTube videos and things are useful. Where you say, all right, I don't actually want to go through this myself, but can you please remind me of like what are these people's relationships? Who's mad at who? What are the betrayal points at this level of the game? And then I can go from there. But I have found in my history of playing video games that happens, what you described with Colin, more often than I would like, where I just wind up not wanting to play the first act 100 times.
Well,
yeah, no, it
Colin's a
definitely is
psychopath,
very.
so it's not normal behavior.
I was gonna say it definitely is game specific, like you said, games that don't have diary systems or I actually Octopath Traveler is a great example of. I was playing that game. I was maybe 5 hours in, dropped it because I moved, tried to pick it up again a couple weeks later, and I was just hopelessly lost. And I couldn't figure out what I was doing. And that game has somewhat of like a journal system, but I was just like, I can't for the life of me figure out where I was going. And I was just lost like in the woods. And it's the random battle, the battles kept happening. I was just like, what is, and I just restarted it. But like I waited, I don't know, like a year. I can't do this right away. But I do want to replay Witcher 3 someday. I was on like my third playthrough and I didn't finish it, so I might just pick that up and finish it. I'll restart it. I also really want to play Seventh Dragon 3 again someday. That's on my list this year. But it's like with all these new releases, like Gene will be like, "Oh, I'm playing Yakuza Kiwami again," and I'm like, "How are you keeping your head above water, man? There's so much to play." And he still plays the new stuff. Like Gene still does it. I think he just doesn't sleep. That man has more hours in his day than I do. I feel like that must be true.
Yeah.
He's very focused.
Yeah.
Dude, it's insanity. He'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to play through the whole Yakuza series again. Also, I'm reviewing this game, and I'm playing them all thoroughly." And I'm like, how?
You got to throw in a Severance tweet there somewhere. But yeah.
Imagine Severance. I'm not like, I'm waiting for them all to be out so I can binge through it. But I'm like, dude, Gene's got more than 24 hours in a day, I think. I can't prove that. But there is that guy. I don't know if you guys saw like the viral video of like a dude who says he has more than 24 hours in a day.
No.
Because he breaks. He's just like out of his mind. But he's like, I break every hour into 3 whatevers, and he's like, so those are 3 hours, so every day I have, and it's like 36 hours or whatever. Like,
okay.
Crazy.
Like,
it was just him segmenting his time differently, but he's convinced he actually does have now 36 hours per day.
Yeah, that's funny. For me, this is a problem. I always want to replay stuff. I just like think like, here's a great example. Micah, you're talking about Mega Man 64 or Mega Man Legends. And I was like, oh man, I should replay that game. I need to replay that.
Brad.
This happens to me all the time. And I usually don't do it, but I think about doing stuff like that all the time.
Oh, I'm definitely playing Onimusha tonight. So
there you go. There you go. $10, baby, all day. All right, let's see here. This is from Vaughn Allison. Sup, Summoners. The YouTube algorithm is at it again and keeps slamming me with retrospectives on video games I grew up with, diving deep as hell into classics I haven't touched in ages. GTA 3 is the latest for me. I re-downloaded it on my stinky Switch port and began my act of revenge after the botched bank heist for the 40th time probably. What's a game series that is your nostalgic kryptonite? The game where you could still recite the cheat codes by muscle memory, or maybe you've discovered something new after years of hiatus. Keep on keeping on. Thank you for keeping me company on a rainy day away from the family. All right. So, what's a game, I guess, where it's just like, as he said, nostalgic kryptonite for you, where you just can't resist it and you keep coming back to it, or you're so fondly attached that you can remember everything about it. Like he said, like entering the cheat codes, you still remember them and stuff like that.
Well, I think this is going to go with my earlier response to a commenter, but it's going to be Final Fantasy for me, especially with the Pixel remasters out now.
Final Fantasy 1?
No, the series Final Fantasy. As a group of games, I basically am always willing to play one of them at any given time. So it's really nice and also dangerous to have them basically available on the Switch and the PlayStation and anywhere else that I would want to play anything at all times. But yeah, I pop into Final Fantasies. Like, I never really played 5 so much. That's one I've been trying to attack.
Oh, okay, nice.
Because it's the one between my 2 of my favorite Final Fantasies ever. And so I keep trying to kind of interact with that one. And that's on, I know that's right now on my Switch dashboard. And I will constantly go back to that series. And if I see something, if I see a conversation, it's one of the reasons Twitter is so willing to feed me conversations about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right now, is because apparently I've interacted with those comments too much. And it just thinks I'm deeply invested in whether or not you prefer Tifa or Aerith. I'm really not, internet. I don't care. Either way, it's great. Whatever you prefer is fine with me. But the people that are fighting that fight are animated, and Twitter thinks I care desperately about who wins.
Yeah. Micah, what about you?
That's, I mean, kind of going back to the last question, there kind of isn't one.
Okay.
Like, as much as I love Gears of War, seeing people talk about Gears 3, I'm not like, let me go fire that up. I'm like, oh, memories. Excellent. But I kind of just move on from it. Like, I don't really have that for anything of, I saw this. I gotta go play it right now. I'm like, nah, I'm doing something. I'm busy.
Oh, okay.
I guess I lack the impulse to say like, oh man, I'm thinking about this game and I just have to go play it. It just doesn't, I'm like, yeah, it exists. It's on the shelf.
So what you're telling me is you're a fake fan and not a true gamer?
That's what they'll tell you. That's what they'll tell you. But I'd say I loved Gears Judgment and no one else liked it. And I loved that game.
Yeah, you love Baird. That's true.
I do. And it doesn't even make sense. Real quick aside, they added new enemies in Gears Judgment, and it's like a prequel, right? And then like they're not there in the regular in the next
day.
It doesn't make sense. You know, like it doesn't even make sense. But I loved Judgment. It had this wicked cool mode. What was it called? It was a mode where you could play as the Locust or as the Cog.
Oh yeah,
and,
it was like horde mode, wasn't it? No, or was it versus? I'm trying to remember, but it was something like that.
It was online, and it's like you actually were on the Locust team, and then the other like real players were on the other side, and like it would switch. I played like the beta of that. Cool. And I was like, oh my God. Because I saw a Facebook status recently. It's why it's on my mind. I saw a Facebook status where I was like, playing the beta for this. It's insane. And I was like, dude, I was so hyped about it. I loved it.
Dork.
You got to be a corpser, okay?
Yeah,
like you got to be one. I loved it. Yeah. But I can't remember what it's called. That's where my memory fails me. It's like, what was that mode called? I don't know, but I can tell you everything I loved about it.
Yeah, because the name doesn't matter. That makes sense.
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah. For me, my kryptonite is definitely the Zelda series. Easily, I could replay those games so many times. I see anything, like even Micah just talking about Zelda, I'm like, oh, maybe I should play through that again as well.
No, you shouldn't.
But it's just like, yeah, I'm always fascinated by those games. I love looking at YouTube videos about them and all that kind of development, lore, anything like that. I am a big fan of. So definitely that for me.
Oh, just real quick. It was called Overrun. That was the name of the mode. Yes.
All right. This is from Ben Scott. Hey, Brad, Micah, and Hoeg. I did something a little questionable this week. I purchased a used copy of Fire Emblem Three Houses from a mom and pop game store, but it didn't have the actual case. So I went to a random GameStop, found an actual case on the shelf, swapped it out real quick, and walked out. It was really busy, and I don't think anyone even saw me walk in or out. I got those fuckers back for you, Micah. Hoeg, can you represent me in court? LOL. Have any of you ever committed a nerd crime of this nature? Love the show. Keep it up. All right. Vengeance for Micah right there. First of all, justice for Micah. Now, Micah, have you made any gamer crimes like this or done any?
I've committed a crime, yes.
Oh,
okay.
Do tell.
Here's what happened. I had to Google it because I was like, I know it was a Tom Clancy game and it's the only one I've ever played. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Future Soldier. All right. I rented it on GameFly and I was really liking it. So I'm pretty sure I hit keep because I'm just like, I know I had a copy of this and then it stopped working. I was maybe like a couple hours into the campaign and it just wouldn't play anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I went to GameStop and I traded it in.
Hell yeah.
And then I bought a new one online. And I felt real bad about it. But I was like very, very poor at the time. And it just was. I was like, well, they'll play the first 4 hours like I did. And then they'll probably trade it in too.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. It's just like, because it was something where I couldn't return it to GameFly. I don't remember why. Like, I can't remember the specifics of why I was in this situation, except that I owned the game. It was their copy originally. She stopped working. There was nothing I could do. except
Right.
pawn it off on GameStop. I wasn't going to sell it like on eBay or something. That'd be worse. But GameStop?
Welcome. It's the mentality.
Yeah, that's my gamer crime.
What about you, Hoeg? Any gamer crimes?
I don't think so. Again, my role on this kind of story is that I was the guy at the electronic boutiques,
Right.
who was finding the mom and pop case that was put on our shelf unceremoniously and figuring out what to do from there. But I don't believe I have committed a nerd crime of this nature.
You never had a game early in the store and took one home or anything like that?
No, although I will say that the procedure at Electronics Boutique when I worked there, so we're talking about the late 90s, of bringing in pre-owned games was to allow a given associate to play them for a period of time to have some understanding of the game if they wanted to. And then they would be returned to the store and essentially rewrapped to look newish. I mean, it never looked like the same kind of crisp wrapping that you'd get from the factory. I think at some point that either became illegal or untoward in the United States for the stores to do. But certainly I didn't really see any problem or object to that policy or procedure when I was the one doing it back in the day. So if that constitutes a nerd crime, perhaps. But it was fully within corporate procedure at the time.
Yeah. Protected by the law. I can't think of anything like... I don't think I've ever stolen a game or anything like that, or like a case or anything like that. I can't recall ever doing something like that. I want to say maybe, Micah, I sold something to GameStop that was kind of iffy. Maybe I've done that before. I'm trying to think. Like maybe my 360 was a little sus, and I sold it to them anyways and got away with it. Something like that.
Yeah, that reminds me of something else I did.
Oh. But I have like N64 games particularly, or like, I don't know if most kids kind of went through this as well, because I had stuff missing, is sometimes you just ended up with games and you don't know whose it was, but it's not yours. And it's just, I've had these forever. I don't know whose this is, but I just have this. So I've had plenty of games like that around that time period that I don't know whose they are. All right, Mike, let's hear your other dastardly deed.
I didn't actually do this. We had a jailbroken PS3 and it stopped working. And you could do the hairdryer trick to like reheat the soldering, and it would work for like half an hour and then it would shut off. Now this was legal, okay? Not the jailbreaking part. What I tried to do. Mm-hmm. Gameplay USA did take damaged consoles. They did. So that was part of their thing, was they would take broken consoles for parts. So I wasn't trying to pawn off a broken system because it would work. Like it would turn on for 20 minutes. I wasn't trying to do that. Like they knew it was broken. However, the shopkeep identified right away that it was jailbroken. However, they zigged when I zagged. They were like, oh, I can see, the tampering sticker because like the screw that's behind it. They're like, I can see that tampering sticker's been messed with. I can throw this out for you. And it's like, it was one of those moments of like, I know that that this thing is still worth money. You're just going to throw it out for me. Yeah. Thanks. They tried to get me because I was like, my PS3's broken. I didn't mention it was jailbroken, of course.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, the warranty sticker's broken. I'll throw it out for you. And I was like, no, you won't. And I took it back home.
That's really funny. Oh, just so anyone, if they're screaming at me, yes, I've done emulation many times also, though. So that is a gamer crime, I suppose. And I still do it to this day. And I'm not sorry about it.
No, you're Michael Scott when he's like prison Mike, and he's like, I never got caught neither.
Yeah, I never got caught neither. Yeah, that's exactly right. Let me buy those games, dicks. Then
though,
let me buy them.
It's not my fault if the game cannot be purchased. All right.
Yeah.
Is it a crime? Don't answer that, Rick.
Don't answer that, Rick. Yeah.
I think I have some episodes on that.
He sure does.
Channel. But no, in all honesty, for this fact pattern, as we used to call it in law school, it would depend on the jurisdiction. I'm not even sure a real crime was committed, let alone a nerd crime here. It really depends on the jurisdiction's laws, because this store, GameStop, is not selling cases. And usually when you talk about something like theft or robbery, it requires you to steal something that is being sold by the retailer. Now, you can go in, I suppose, and steal the shelving units and things and get into trouble that way. It's not as clear to me that the case would rise to that level. So I don't want to just tell this person that they're fine. And it really depends on the jurisdiction and the state and all these other factors. But it's probably of de minimis value, if any. And they weren't trying to sell you a case. So I just don't want you to stay awake at night if this is really bothering you, commenter. If it isn't, you're good.
I want you to stay awake at night. You did a bad thing. You know what you've done. You didn't feel good stealing it.
Honestly, the reason why I knew immediately, like, in answer to this is because I have never stopped thinking about trading in that copy of Tom Clancy. It has plagued me for so long.
Really?
Maybe you
Can I tell you, at least at Electronics Boutique, the predecessor to GameStop as we know it right now, we had ways of fixing scratched or otherwise bothered CDs back in the day. So I can only assume that that's better now.
That reminded me that, I tried to fix it with the peanut butter trick first. That didn't work.
Peanut butter?
What is peanut butter supposed to do?
Peanut butter on your disc?
That's what they said, Brad. That's what they said. And so I tried it. It didn't work. It did. And then I was like, I simply cannot afford a brand new copy outright. I need to get some of my money back.
Dude, we got to start a fake rumor, like putting mayonnaise on your disc will fix it.
Well, yeah, it was peanut butter and toothpaste.
I'm just
neither worked.
There's every possibility that they fixed the disc and it was played happily by some other player for the end of time.
No, you're right, because I forgot they had the disc resurfacing machine. I forgot about that. So hopefully they did, and I didn't scam some poor little Timmy who played 4 hours of his Christmas game and then it froze. It froze at the same part every time. The guy's like, all right, let's go. And then he just stands there and the whole thing just stops. I'm like, no.
You did this to Timmy. How dare you?
That's right. Please write in if you experience this exact scenario.
Yeah. If you bought Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Future Soldier from a GameStop in Hadley, Massachusetts, you tell me if it just stopped working.
Okay, this is from Grizzly Guy 19. Hey, LSM crew. The wife and I have been loving Split Fiction. We have gone through it with relative ease. Though she's really good at a bunch of games, kills at Super Smash Bros. And even has high scores in Resogun, she has a problem using the right stick to control the camera in a third-person game. I was wondering if you had any suggestions to some games that could get her used to camera control in low-pressure games. I haven't played it yet, but I was actually thinking of Death Stranding since it seems to be a walking simulator.
No.
What are your thoughts? No.
Don't do that.
No. Thanks for all the great content and keep it up, LSM. Yeah, Death Stranding is not the right choice for that.
Death Stranding is stressful.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't look like it on trailers or commercials or whatever you might have seen of it, but not only is just the mood of the game stressful, but it will throw things at you that you have to have some level of control at, including the process of simulating walking itself.
Yes.
So
and you have a baby crying at you. If you
need to have pretty good control of the right stick, I think. I would say something like a cozy game.
Yeah.
Maybe Micah has some good options for this, but really anything where you're a 3D character and you're mostly gardening and not being imminently attacked by monsters, I think you're going to get a feel for moving that camera around your character.
Yeah, I agree with that. What do you think?
Yeah, my number one answer is always Minecraft, partly because myself, as someone who is getting used to Xbox 360 and getting used to moving the camera around when I had previously only played GameCube and Game Boy games, Minecraft was huge for getting me comfortable with that. A slightly more complicated answer would be Portal 2, which has co-op that's really fun. And as someone who struggles a bit with puzzly type things, I really enjoyed Portal 2 and highly recommend it. And the co-op would be great. That's another one where it's maybe a step up in terms of difficulty, but it's low stakes in the way it's just walk around, just look around. That's why Minecraft, for me, it's super cheap, but it's a really great example because there actually is danger, low stakes danger, but you go find a cave to go explore and there's enemies in there. So it is fun for adults. You don't have to build anything, But looking around and jumping and running around and like, it really did help me get used to using the sticks and all that and it is just, it's low stakes. I mean, I always turn on the setting where if you die, you get all your stuff back. Because I'm a baby about that stuff. I'm like, no, I'm not losing all my shit. So you can make it as low stakes as you want, but it's still a challenge for adults. And it's just so fun to go explore. I'm a Minecraft like fanatic, and it is so infinitely fun to just walk around the world, find a cave, walk in it. You'll find out that it goes like 50 million feet below the earth, and it's a ton of fun in there. And there's always cool stuff to find. And that's just like a really great co-op game, truly. So I highly recommend Minecraft, only because the look of it kind of puts you at ease. Like, oh yeah, this is simplistic. And there's enough to do to make it really fun still for adult players.
Nice. Good pick, yeah. My pick is Elden Ring. You'll be totally fine in that, no problem. Very chill. No, but since she was playing Split Fiction, I kind of want to recommend you Mario Odyssey. Has really good controls, pretty chill at the beginning, super fun. No, you don't got time limit. You don't got to worry about getting hungry, some creeper blowing up on you or anything like that. You can ease into it a lot more. And if you're playing Split Fiction, you're used to jumping and all that kind of stuff now. So you're in the zone.
I just like the sales pitch as Minecraft is just too hard. So you should try Mario. Yeah, I like that combination.
Dude. Mario, dude,
I like the Mario Odyssey recommendation. I was thinking of Astrobot as well.
Yeah,
so
that's
yes,
also
I think
a great
anything
one.
that's a platformer is going to make you use the right stick because you're going to have to figure out where everything is actually located in the 3D space. But you're not necessarily going to be charged at by monsters like Hideo Kojima wants to in Death Stranding.
Well, yeah, you got to get through like an hour of cutscenes first, so that might be a little much for her.
All right. I want you to know, honestly, before I saw the Monster Prom 4 announcement, before I came on the show today, that my keep it up was going to be Mr. Kojima for his awesome trailer of Death Stranding 2.
Yeah.
So I love Death Stranding 1.
Me too.
I vouch for Death Stranding. I am excited about that sequel this year.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't watch the trailer because I didn't want to see more of it. I saw a couple screenshots, but yeah,
I jokingly say this in other capacities, but I think Hideo Kojima sometimes just makes games and scenes in games because he loves making the trailer of them.
Yeah.
Like the Death Stranding 2 trailer might be one of the best things we get out of that project. And I say that jokingly because I think the game's going to be awesome. Yeah. But that trailer is amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be sick.
Okay. Can I tell you guys a secret real quick?
Yes.
In Minecraft, I always have it so that Steve only eats pork chops. And so when you're talking about he starts getting hungry, it's like, yeah, it's a real panic because it's like, I got to go find like pigs specifically because he only eats pork chops. What? He won't eat anything else.
Are you some kind of pervert, Micah? Like you are such a deviant with things like this.
It adds a layer of difficulty. He can only have one food source. Maybe he has the red meat allergy.
You just have some weird fetish where you only want to eat pigs or something like that.
The pork chops, first of all, I love pork chops in real life. I do love them. But, I mean, he loves them too. And they look delicious. Have you seen a Minecraft pork chop?
Yeah.
They look so good.
Pork chop only run? Yeah.
Exactly. No.
You're like, I like it because it's difficult, but I don't want to lose my stuff if I die or anything like that.
I'm not losing a fucking diamond because I made one wrong move and I fell in the lava.
In your damn house, Micah.
I'm talking about when you're hunting. I'm talking about when you're in.
You get the diamond, you bring it back. You make a system and you bring it back.
I didn't make it out. All right. I had this one time. I had like this elaborate minecart system. It literally took 3 like real life minutes to go from like the cave I was working on back to my house. So like I would just take the cart. But one time, like a creeper blew it up, and I like died. You cannot imagine the tragedies I've experienced in Minecraft. You simply cannot.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes. The worst one is that I built a house called Cosby Place, and then all that stuff with Bill Cosby happened.
Oh no!
And then I was like, what am I going to do with Cosby Place?
Rename it quickly.
It wasn't the same. I just started a new one.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to destroy that house.
Yeah.
Okay, final write in here from fan. Hi all. What are your thoughts on established IP from other forms of media such as movies, TV shows, and books playing a dominant role in games today? Many games in development are being based on established IP such as Wolverine, Blade, and James Bond. It reminds me of the 2000s era of movie tie-in games. Do you like this approach of gaming? I feel as though the early to mid 2010s had less of these games in AAA space. So, I don't know, Hoeg, this is something I feel like that's been in games forever. Like, I'm thinking back, like, in the NES days, like, there's so many tie-in things. Mostly bad, I will add. Bill and Ted, Back to the Future. Tons of bad stuff. But there's some cool stuff, like Batman on NES, the Sunsoft one. That was a sick game.
I think I was introduced to Spider-Man with the Genesis game. So there's certainly been IP crossovers for as long as we can think of gaming. But I agree that a lot of the AAA space, because of the investment, because of the time they're spending on these games, seems to have adopted a better safe than sorry, let's integrate some IP into the fold kind of concept. Sometimes that results in things that I really love, like Star Wars Outlaws or like Hogwarts Legacy, right? We've gotten amazing experiences in IPs that we wouldn't have gotten before. I love that. I'm glad they exist. But I do look at a company like Insomniac, who is a developer I really love, and a part of me wishes that they were not just making Spider-Man and Wolverine and those kinds of things, because I do think that part of what makes video gaming awesome is that you don't have to be bound by the rules of reality, whether that's as presented in comic books or anything else. One of the reasons I love split fiction so much is that, yes, it's not a real sci-fi story. It's not a real fantasy story. It's kind of taking tropes from these things, but using those tropes to make its own story, to make its own video game focused reference point is better than had it a license from some fantasy something and some science fiction something. So I have said for a long time that I think we've moved out of the area of AAA development in particular that had the level of variety that I liked in video games. Like, there were eras that had a lot more variety of experiences. And if we had something like Dark Cloud coming out now, it would probably be branded separately. It would probably be sold differently than just as a brand new intellectual property, because there is a value in getting more eyeballs on your game when 300 release a day and you're spending years and years making your game. I get that from the corporate perspective. I get that from the sales perspective, but I still love that variety. And what I will tell you is that this question was framed around AAA. I agree with the commenter, but I don't think people that are really interested in video gaming and interested in new ideas and novelty and variety should limit their experiences to AAA. Yes, indie games can sometimes be clunky. Yes, they maybe aren't as polished as something with more money and resources put at them, but the real ingenuity, the strange stuff in gaming is happening with those smaller developers, is watching those smaller developers figure out what they can do differently because they're not bound by $100 million or more budget and can look at these ideas from their own perspective. One of the earlier commenters in this episode itself talked about how great it is to have folks like the folks making Clair Obscure, Expedition 33, whose name escapes me. I want to say Sandfall. And I think it's great to support the industry and different people making their own studios and doing different things. I know the Witcher developers are making their own thing right now that I'm excited about. I think it's great to support those things. Unfortunately, I think, at least for right now, AAA gaming is going to be mostly bound by trying to make sure that every bet they make is as safe as possible. And oftentimes that's going to mean more IP.
Yep. Any thoughts, Micah, on this?
Yeah, I agree with Rick on a lot of that, because some of my favorite games, like the Batman Arkham series, of course, it's Batman. Big name Batman. And dude, I fucking loved Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Like, these are just excellent games. I think the key is whether or not the games are high quality and not just a ridiculous cash grab. I'll say, though, I completely understand the write-in of, I do find myself more excited about titles that are completely new. I do find myself more intrigued by things that I'm not familiar with. But even so, that can still be licensed content. A huge example of that for me is the Telltale game, The Wolf Among Us, which is my favorite of the Telltale series. That's based on the Fables comic book series. So it's based on an existing IP, but one that I'd never heard of. And it introduced it to a ton of people. So for me, that's a part of it is, yeah, maybe we do start to get just not so excited about the biggest name IP like tie-ins, but I do love to see games that incorporate less well known properties that for the people who love Fables, they can be really psyched about it, and for people like me who are like, I've never heard of this and it's the best idea I've ever heard. So I don't want to see less per se, because it might mean missing out on something great. I'm excited about the Wolverine game. I love Wolverine. Dude, X-Men Origins Wolverine is a top 5 Micah movie. A lot of people hate it, but that's like a top 5 movie for me.
You said movie. I was about to back you up because that game is really, it's a lot of fun.
Oh,
and then
yeah,
you went
I never
to
played it.
And I was like, oh, no.
No.
Dude, I love that movie so much. When Liev Schreiber is like running up the stairs like a fucking cat, dude, like and that's like right in the first 5 minutes. I'm like, I was going nuts. I saw that, I think, for the first time at the drive-in theater, which made it even more epic. But oh, Mamma Mia, that's a movie.
Yeah, that sure is a movie. All right.
Will.i.am is in it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a movie. All right, guys.
How dare you, Brad?
Yeah, I have no regrets. And no
it
regrets
set up
about
the Deadpool movies, Brad. It set it up for us. We wouldn't have those without it.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
they made us wait like 10 years for it too, but
yeah. All right, guys, that's it. Another episode in the books. We are done. Episode 64. We're going to say goodbye, though, right now. Mr. Hoeg, anything you would like to say before we leave? Or what are your plans for the day?
Nothing to sell, Brad. I am good. I have no video content up on my channel for a week now.
Okay.
As I still figure out exactly what my process is going to be in this new world order of mine. But I am excited this week, as I so often am in Michigan, for the first week of March Madness, the NCAA basketball tournament, which is often coinciding here where I live with the first days of spring, the days where you can open the window, get a cross breeze in your house. I love this period of time. I'm super excited about my Michigan Wolverines in the tournament. By the time you see this, they could already be out. Who knows? But I'm excited about this. I love the basketball tournament. And so if you do have a team that you're rooting for in the tournament, good luck to them, unless they're playing my Michigan Wolverines. And enjoy this time where we're finally breaking out of winter and getting to experience some nice warm weather again. I know that doesn't count for you, Brad, because you're in always nice Southern California.
I can't relate, dude. It's just, sun's always out, man. It's always pleasant here.
Yeah, Brad is just sun-kissed year-round. You'll never see, like, dude, I seriously get so light during winter, and then, like, as the summer progresses, like, it's browner and browner. It's like Brad's just always consistently, like, the same.
It's
I love it. I love my seasons here, but it does feel like you've waged a war of attrition to get through the winter.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear that. And I'm like, part of me I'm like, oh, that sounds really nice. The seasons like actually seem to really matter a lot. But at the same time, I'd probably really start to hate the snow and stuff like that being cooped up. So I don't know. Grass is always greener.
It's a crazy day to open that window for the first time and be like, wow, it was really stale in here.
Yeah. All right, Micah, what do you got going on for the rest of the day?
Well, actually, Hoeg reminded me, I meant to bring this up. I have been away from my YouTube channel long enough that people have started speculating that I died. It was just really funny to see a comment of somebody comments. It started with people asking if I was okay. And then it progresses someone just thinking like, I think she died. And then, like,
you're like you're on more content now probably than you were doing back then.
That's the thing. They just don't know. And it's really funny and I just like, I part of me wanted to reply and be like, not dead, just work here now. And then I was like, it's kind of funny to have this YouTube lore spooling up. I'm like, oh no, she died. Like that's, I'm going to let it roll.
Someone's got to make a video. What happened to Mama Micah?
Oh, dude. Yeah. If I got my own like YouTube, expose, that'd be hysterical.
That'd be awesome.
I won't.
All right. It's lunchtime for me. I'm going to eat some rice and chicken, then go to the gym. Hooray. So that's it. We're out of here, everybody. Micah, Hoeg, thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody. Have a nice week. We'll see you then. Goodbye. Summon Sign is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is written and hosted by me, Brad Ellis. The show is produced by Dustin Furman. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. Summon Sign, along with the rest of Last Stand's media shows, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we are grateful for your kind contribution and generosity to our independent endeavor. Thank you.